The Projection Booth podcast is sponsored by Scarecrow Video. Try out Scarecrow's rent by mail service. Choose from over 150,000 films and get Blu-rays, 4Ks, and DVDs delivered directly to your door. Visit scarecrow.com today.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
People pay good money to see this movie. When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
Armed political extremists have taken hostages downtown.
Somebody do something!
Wait! Stop! We'll get to all of that. Just relax, okay? We'd lost Shelley a year ago. These days, it's just me and the kid.
Looks great.
I'll just scrape off the black part. That part's pretty good.
No, give him back.
I don't want to hurt him.
Why didn't you do anything?
Sometimes it's better to do nothing. It's going good.
You're saying that this corporation would knowingly poison its own customers just to boost their own profit margins?
Summon the nuts.
Okay, summoning the nuts.
I didn't want any of this. I'm a monster.
You're not a monster. Show him your good heart.
Hey, buddy, I'm your dad. What the? I wasn't even involved. But sometimes, you gotta do something. Who the fuck are you? Just some dude with a mop!
I'm screaming the pain, holding hands up to God.
How does it feel to be a hero?
A simple melody.
Do you realize what's at stake here?
Everything!
Find him, bring him here. There you are.
Only the good things in life, that's all that matters.
That was just self-defense. You haven't killed anyone else, have you?
See, when you say, self-defense,
Only the good things.
He's an ugly son of a bitch, though.
That's all that matters to me.
The Toxic Avenger.
That's what the kids are calling him. I think it's swell.
Welcome to the Projection Booth. I'm your host, Mike White. Joining me once again is Mr. Rob St. Mary.
He's an ugly son of a bitch.
You talking about me?
Well, just looking in a mirror, sorry.
It's two Toxies in one on this special episode as we dive deep into a double dose of cinematic sludge as everybody's favorite hideously deformed creature of superhuman strength from New Jersey, the Toxic Avenger, cleans up in two new movies. First, we'll be discussing the 2023 big budget reimagining, which received its theatrical release in late summer 2025 from writer-director Macon Blair, starring Peter Dinklage as Winston Goose, the poor janitor, this time at a pharmaceutical and health supplement company, who gets dumped into a vat of chemicals and becomes the Toxic Avenger. It also stars Kevin Bacon as the owner of the company and Elijah Wood as the executive's brother who handles his security, which is a rock band. And later we'll be discussing the 2025 reconstruction of the 1989 original Toxic Avenger sequels, Part 2 and Part 3, in a new movie now called Mr. Melvin. We'll be getting into both films, and there could be spoilers, so if you haven't seen them and you don't want anything ruined, turn off the podcast, go watch them, come on back. We'll still be waiting for you. So, Rob, when was the first time you saw this new Toxic Avenger, and what did you think?
I remember this being teased, as you noted, 2023. It started appearing on the festival circuit. And I remember seeing a trailer and all of that, and I was really looking forward to it because I know that, as I discussed later in the interview with Lloyd, this had been a long time coming. And so finally it was going to play locally, and I believe I went to the first show on opening day in August here in Albuquerque, and I really liked it. I was in a theater with, 20, 25 people on that first showing. You could tell they were Troma heads in certain ways. They were laughing at the right parts. I felt that it had just the right amount of fan service, and it did its own thing. And in a lot of ways moves the concept forward. In some ways, it actually feels influenced by Lloyd's later work, because if you look at Lloyd's earlier films, they're mostly sex comedies, and then the Toxic Avenger comes in, and this sci-fi horror element comes in, but it's still kind of a sex comedy. It's like Revenge of the Nerds meets Frankenstein or something. There's a little bit of social commentary in the original 1984, but in this one it really sets out to be its own thing in certain ways, and of course talks to the moment in which we live in several ways, including healthcare. And I would also say the culture war in a scene that comes up later. I just thought it was a lot of fun. I think that if you're going to try to remake Toxie, I really don't think you could do much better than this in certain ways, while still in some ways trying to bring in new people while keeping the core of what makes the Toxic Avenger so lovable to the fans.
This one was so strange to me because, I remember when it was playing at festivals in 2023, and I just thought, okay, well, by spring of 2024, we're all going to be able to watch it. And when it took so long for it to get distribution, I'm just like, what the heck is going on? This is the Toxic Avenger. Give this man some respect here. What is happening? And then I don't know if it ever played at theaters around me. I remember, and I don't like to admit this, but I found it on the bootlegs, as it were, and I want to say I found two versions of it. There seemed to be one that was about, an hour and 30 minutes, and one that was an hour and 40 minutes. I don't know if they're like this. The version that I ended up watching is the unrated version, and I don't know, maybe the other one was just cut off at the end, which happens. In fact, we'll talk about Mr. Melvin later, because you can tell me how that one ends, because my file just cut off right at the end. But with this Toxic Avenger, I was really happy just because I freaking love Peter Dinklage so much and was so excited to see him in this type of thing, because even though Dinklage, he makes fun of himself a lot, like roles like the first time I saw him, I think was Living in Oblivion. That was very uncomfortable, him questioning Steve Buscemi about why is there a dwarf in this dream.
Strange things happen in a dream. All I want you to do is laugh. Why is that such a problem for you?
Why does it have to be a dwarf?
What?
Why does my character have to be a dwarf?
It doesn't have to be a dwarf.
Then why is he? Is that the only way you can make this a dream? Put a dwarf in it?
No, Tito.
Have you ever had a dream with a dwarf in it? Do you know anyone who's had a dream with a dwarf in it? No! I don't even have dreams with dwarves in them. The only place I've seen dwarves in dreams is in stupid movies like this. Oh, make it weird. Put a dwarf in it. Everyone will go, whoa, whoa, whoa. It must be a fucking dream. There's a fucking dwarf in it. Well, I'm sick of it. You can take this dream sequence and shove it up your ass.
Also, his role in Elf is fantastic, but so often he seems to be very serious, and it could just be because he's got a little bit of RBF when it comes to just his face, and then he's got that great deep voice. So it always feels like he's much more serious than I think he is. He kind of reminds me of Michael Shannon that way. When you see Shannon do comedy, you're like, this doesn't compute for me. And same thing kind of with Dinklage. Like, Peter Dinklage is in a Troma movie, but he's awesome as always. And then great job doing the voiceover once he gets toxified. And you were talking before we started recording, the actress that plays the actual Toxie in the suit. Wonderful, wonderful performance.
You used that abbreviation, and it took me a second for my mind to click in as to what RBF meant. There's just a lot of elements in here that just make it a lot of fun. And where I saw it, then this was the first time I didn't end up getting one because they didn't have them there. But they even went so far with this release to have the collectible popcorn buckets at the theater where I was at. They didn't happen to have them in, but I remember online when this was released, I think it may have went to Cinemark. Like it got like kind of a 2-week window or something like that. And they had a vat, like the 55-gallon drum, with the logo and all that stuff on it. And I was like, wow, okay, they're actually going to do something with this, because I think about the time that I met Lloyd, if not right after, I think it was right after. It was right after, probably, because I met Lloyd in 98 when he picked up my movie. And I would say it's probably by the early 2000s that all of this discussion starts happening. So it's like 25 years that they've been talking about, oh, we're going to make a big budget Toxie movie. And at one point, it was the team behind Hot Tub Time Machine that was going to do it. There was, I think at one time, I think it was Akiva Goldsman, the screenwriter, wrote a script. I'm not sure. There's been several different scripts. There's been several different castings. At one point, Arnold was going to play the role. There was some, I think Variety or Hollywood Reporter reported like things were moving. And there's part of me that really likes with this movie that they didn't do what they did in the original series. And what I mean by that is with Dinklage and making them a smaller character. I mean, Toxie literally becomes the little man, which the whole point of Toxie is he fights for the little man. Now he is the little man. And so I think if they would have just went with the 1984 version where it's like, yes, he's a nerd and he's scrawny and then he becomes this brute, Hulk, character, basically. I just think it would have been like, yeah, like we got that in the first movie, show me something new. And so I think that the casting in that way was smart. I think it was an interesting way to go about it.
No, I completely agree. It's something to see a huge monster running around as opposed to this much smaller monster where it kind of moves, like you were saying, Frankenstein. It moves more into like a goblin type of character in those types of way. Especially he's got his broomstick, and we're almost talking witchcraft here, but the broomstick, the glowing green broomstick that he carries around with him, which does a whole lot of damage. I mean, because we see the original Toxic Avenger with his broomstick, or sorry, not broomstick, mop. Jeez, why the hell am I talking about broomsticks over here? With this mop.
Were you watching Wicked or something? What's going on?
I know. Yeah, well, glowing green, and then there's this other person that's all in pink. I think it's Kevin Bacon. So yeah, to see him going around with his mop, and then you've got the original Toxic Avenger with his mop, and it just... Yeah, he uses his mop to battle people, but he really doesn't need it. Whereas with Peter Dinklage, with his mop, he definitely needs it. It comes in handy quite a few times, especially when he completely removes the jaw of a person with that mop or lops off the top of somebody's head. And God, they are using just... The effects are so wretched that they move from being bad to hilarious.
That's the thing, too, is that it does have that cartoony element. It does have this tone, which to me, I think was probably a challenge to any sort of mainstream commercial distribution, because it's like, the tone's a little weird. And it's like, yeah, but in a way, that's kind of what is so endearing about the Troma movies is the tone. It's that way. So I can understand where mainstream company like Legendary who put it out is like, well, how are we going to figure out who to get to come see this? Because I mean, beyond the partisans, like there are the Troma nerds and fans like me who are going to show up and we'll enjoy it. there will also be that little click in our head where every time we see an echo or something to the other films, there's going to be something in there. There might be a little bit of, in my case, I was kind of going, okay, how are they going to handle this? What is, and so there is comparison, but I also try to, be philosophical about it and say, comparison is the joy of thief, is the thief of joy, I should say. And so you don't want to compare it too much because you just want to go in and enjoy it for what it is. But the thing is like, I can't turn off what I already know. So the question is, how do you get normies who aren't hip to Toxie to show up and see this, and what do they think? So for me, it would have been interesting for someone to have a conversation with someone who doesn't really know anything about, the Toxic Avenger, who got to see the film. I mean, you and I are too steeped in the toxic sludge to pretend we don't know.
Way back in 2012, when we talked about the Toxic Avenger the first time, God, it was episode 69, and now we're up in like the 700s. So it's been a minute since we talked about the Toxic Avenger, and I was never a fan. It just never really connected with me. And I don't know what it was, if it was perhaps some mind-altering substances that I might have ingested beforehand. But when I watched the Toxic Avenger again Friday night before we started recording this, so 3 days ago, I hit with it so hard, and it was so funny to me that time around. Suddenly now I can say I'm a fan of the Toxic Avenger. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And just oh my God, the mania of especially the bad guys in that one, just the two guys and the two girls that are always at that health club. And I like how they kind of use the health stuff from that to go into like the self-help stuff that Kevin Bacon is doing in this one. I really fell in love with that, and their whole thing of driving around and killing small children and crushing their heads, taking Polaroids of it. And then when the girl masturbates to the pictures of the crushed heads, I was just like, yeah, this really works for me. I don't know why it took so long for the Toxic Avenger to finally connect with me, but I was really just there for it. So watching this one, I was very prepped. It's interesting how we've shifted. There's not a lot of gratuitous nudity in this one. It becomes much more about gratuitous violence.
That's the American way.
Just the jokes, the corny jokes are still there in spades, which I really liked as well. Just seeing some of these silly things like I'm going to focus on this a lot, but the band that is also the enforcers and how they are they're kind of ICP. They're kind of guar a little bit.
They sound like new metal mixed with ICP, and especially with the front man who's got his face painted up in clown makeup. So it feels like that's what they were going for, is a riff on ICP, which, as Detroiters, we have a mixed feeling on ICP at times. I will say, when I did my book on Orbit, which Orbit did, report on ICP in the early days, juggalos are great. They're some of the nicest people. There's an episode of Workaholics that I remember where it's like the guys go to the gathering of the juggalos and they realize like how nice the juggalos are as a community. I got nothing bad to say about them in that way. I'm just not a fan of their music. It's kind of like, I feel the same way probably about, I don't know, maybe like Grateful Dead fans or something. It's like, music, not so much, but your community's nice. Thank you. I was definitely picking that up as well, in terms of the killer nuts, as they're called, the favorite local attraction in St. Roma's Village.
Yes. We are no longer in Tromaville here, folks. St. Roma's.
But of course, the sign looks like the sign you see in the Toxic Avenger, and the letters are kind of faded, so it looks the letters you see prominent Tromaville, so it's hidden in there.
Yeah, and each one of the members of this band, it's not united by some sort of overall look and feel. They're not all dressed the same. You've got like the chicken-headed man, which I kept wondering if that's a reference to Poultrygeist, Night of the Chicken Dead, or whatever that one was called.
Yes.
And then you've got the guy who he almost looks like Al Jorgensen a little bit. There's another dude who wears a ski mask, and he's got, I think it's a white power symbol, that circle with the plus sign through it, or maybe it's just a gun scope. There's another guy who his face is bandaged up. He looks like a mummy. But my favorite one is the ninja character who just keeps doing the flips. And that might be this guy with the ski mask on. But every time he goes anyplace, he's doing way too many flips, and just gets, I mean, it's just so ridiculous. And I love that they do that. Like, even like, so I was kind of like, all right, how's this movie going to be? You know, we start off with like all these really quick cuts and things. And then we move into Peter Dinklage's face, and he basically like stops the movie. He's like, wait, let me back up type of thing. So he's like this little framing device at the beginning. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure where we're going to go with this thing. And we have this like, I do like they have these on-screen titles that describe where you're at, and each one of those is pretty funny. But until the reporter who's been digging up this information, and he hands that information off to this young woman, and until he gets shot and then keeps standing up, and they do it just the right number of times of how many times he stands up and is just almost berating these guys for shooting him. And they just keep doing it until he finally flies out the window. And each time they would shoot him, it would get a little bit funnier for me.
It really leans into that. And like I say, I love that opening montage piece because you can understand it structurally once you see the movie. Like, how come we're not, like, where are we starting here? And so you get Dinklage kind of teasing you, and then it's like, oh, there's these investigative reporters, which Melvin Ferd, Echo, name of the first Toxic Avenger, is the investigative reporter. And then also another Echo, BTH, is Body Talk Health Style, and Body Talk is the song that you keep hearing in the health club over the opening credits and stuff in the original film. And so JJ is someone who works for BTH. She's got the files, she's got the info, she's going to get it to the investigative reporter and hopefully bring down this horrible company that's been contaminating everything, leading to cancer for the people in the community, because basically everyone's living in a toxic dump as opposed to just Toxie. And then also, I think she talks about later just like the supplements and how there's this cult of personality around the character that's played by Kevin Bacon, and how he's created this supplement company. And there's this whole thing with, they show one of the ads in the film for the company, and it's very kind of, thanks, Bob, like cult of personality, corporate. And it's like, I don't think, I mean, that's totally unrealistic. I've never heard of people being like, worshiping at the feet, I should say, of CEOs like that, and being just so enamored by them. I've never heard of such things before. As Detroiters, I mean, it's not like Henry Ford would put his name on everything, would he? No, I don't know.
We'll go to the Henry Ford health system, and yeah. I like that Melford, that he is the runner-up of the Very Good Investigative Journalism Prize. That was definitely a laugh for me.
One of the things also in here that I noticed when I was watching it, and then I noticed it on the rewatch, is how much the soundtrack adds to the humor. And what I mean by the soundtrack, I'm not just talking about the music. I'm talking about the use of off-screen sounds, off-screen dialogue, off-screen noises. So, for example, what happens is Winston finds out that he's got a very rare form of, we don't know because it's covered by sound, which reminded me of one of my favorite scenes in Discreet Charm of Bourgeoisie, where, here we go, Buñuel, drink, covers up with plain noise the plot piece where the guy's talking on the phone about bringing in the drug deal and all this stuff, because it's like Buñuel's like, don't focus on that, don't focus on the plot, it's not about the plot, is basically what Buñuel's trying to do, and he's trying to fuck with you in that way. And here it's done for humor, where it's like, it's supposed to be this poignant thing, it's supposed to be like, oh, you have this thing, and then like outside they're doing construction, and it's just so loud that no one can hear anything.
That was nice, and I like that they bring that back at the end. We're like, well, we looked for signs of, and then the construction noises, and there's no trace of it. We don't need to know any of that stuff. And I do like how the doctor doesn't give the right information at the right time as well. That the doctor's performance is great too.
There is a drug treatment available for this. It's very new and wildly expensive, but your insurance will probably cover it.
Oh, fuck me. Why didn't you tell me that first?
I should have.
This is the real thematic difference between the two, is that you have the Winston character played by Dinklage, who is a stepdad. He's a widow. His partner, his wife died, and he's raising his stepson. And so you get the idea that, okay, well, maybe she was also poisoned or contaminated, like a cancer cluster in this town that they live in because of the company. And then he finds out that he's got, I don't know, it appears he's got like an inoperable brain tumor is basically all I can figure out from what they're talking about. But the doctor's like, oh, there's a drug. I mean, you know, it's fucking expensive, but there is. And so he tries to call his insurance to figure out if he's eligible. And this whole scene of him like trying to work the automated phone system, you know, like partly reminded me of why I laughed so much in One Battle After Another, where when Leo calls to try to get, you know, to give them the code so he can get the information, and he can't remember the code. And it's like, it just goes through this process of like trying to get through a system, a phone system. But this is obviously much more corporate than the other thing. That's why that was so funny. That's why this is funny. It's also heartbreaking too, because they're like, yes, you have platinum tier. And it's like, yes, I have platinum. And it's like, but that doesn't cover the stuff on the gold tier. And it's like, what? It's like, so there's this back and forth in terms of like, you know, the health insurance isn't going to help you. So this becomes kind of the main piece, where it's, if the corporate folks in charge would have just done the right thing, then maybe he wouldn't have turned into the Toxic Avenger and all of this wouldn't have happened.
You know, if you're not going to pay us enough to afford to live, at least pay us enough not to do this. As he lights a package of toilet paper on fire.
Yeah, that is great. When you just see him in the stairwell going, agent, agent, agent. I was like, what the hell's going on? And then finally, oh, okay, he's on the phone. All right. I get that. I like that whole scene when he goes in and he tries to talk with his boss, talk with Kevin Bacon, approaches him at some big function, and Bacon's not doing well either, or I should say Bob, because he's got the mob breathing down his neck because he is basically running the company into the ground, it looks like, and they can't come up with their next new big thing that is going to help them out. So we see pretty early on headlines of how badly the stock is doing. And yeah, again, it's like, feel good when you see some of these companies taking a big hit when it comes to the stock.
I love the fact that he lives in a house, you know, it's supposed to be like, I guess, San Simeon or something, you know, Xanadu. But it's called Chudhaven.
Yes.
I just thought that was funny. And then you get the echo, too, where the gangster calls him Bozo. So, of course, there's the Bozo character from the original.
That seems to trigger him like calling Marty McFly a chicken. Like, he really gets bent out of shape when somebody calls him Bozo.
And it was really smart in terms of the visual use, in terms of this gala, this fundraising gala where he gets this award and everything, is that if you notice, like, everyone sitting around the table represents something, kind of like a cardinal and the mayor and all of this stuff. So it's like the idea is they're all in together. And I think this might be like one of the big differences between the first original 84 Toxic Avenger and this film, is that in the 84 Toxic Avenger, Lloyd's target really is government corruption. It's really the mayor and all of that stuff, and how mismanaged everything is, and drug dealers who support the mayor, or the mayor supports the drug dealers and stuff like that. But you don't really get too much corporate stuff. Like, that kind of comes later. That comes in the later sequels, and then Lloyd's targets being corporate really starts to ramp in his later work. But in here, it really is about corporate greed. It really is the little guy versus the people who have the money and the means. And so Winston just decides, look, I can't get through this phone tree. It's pain. I'm going to go talk to them. So he sneaks into the gala and has a kind of a little heart-to-heart with Bob. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'd like to help you. And so they, push him down a blind corridor. Yeah, just go down there and, yeah, we'll take care of that for you. And, kind of lock him out. And so nothing's really going to happen for him in terms of getting help from the company in that way.
Bob is he's just so vain. And the first time we see him that he's getting, what was it? Uncoagulated gorilla blood being pumped into him.
I am not anti-vaccine. I have never been anti-vax.
We should probably talk about his assistant a little bit as well, what's your impression of her? Is she in love with Bob and it's unrequited? Like, what is that for you?
I get the feeling that either she's an assistant or, it's kind of like a Lady Macbeth thing is what I get. That she kind of keeps him focused and, she always calls him by a proper name, Robert, and she has this British voice, so she's very kind of stern and, stuff like that. I was under the impression that, I don't know, maybe there was some sort of thing there, between them. But she always seems, it's like you get the feeling that she's kind of just keeps the train on the tracks. Like she's responsible for making sure that this keeps going forward the way that it should. And so she's dealing with him, and she's also dealing with Fritz, who's Bob's brother, who's played by Elijah Wood, who looks like he crawled out of the evil henchman school. He looks like the guy who maybe in a modern version of Frankenstein is like the assistant. He's the Igor, he's kind of hunched over and his hair is, he doesn't really have any hair. And he's fantastic in his part. Hey, he's great.
Oh, he's wonderful. And I love that Elijah Wood is like turned into this person that just keeps embracing the horror community, like producing these movies behind the scenes in front of the camera, in that remake of Maniac and all these things. It's like, that's so nice that that's where he decided to go with everything. And for me, kind of keeping it on brand with Elijah Wood, he looks very much like he has been enthralled by the Ring and it's starting to change him into Gollum.
Yeah, definitely.
And I like his whole one leg shorter than the other, the big shoe that he's wearing on one foot and the cane, it's a whole thing that he's got going on, and that he is the manager of the Killer Nuts at the same time.
Yeah, he's the manager of the band. They're basically his goon squad, so they go out and do stuff. At the same time, you've got Winston trying to be the best dad or stepdad that he can be to Wade, his stepson, who I'm doing a property movement piece. It's not a dance piece. And I couldn't help but think of The Big Lebowski, where the landlord's friend, Marty, hey, dude, will you come to my recital? I'm doing my cycle, dude.
Yeah, I was reminded of that, and I was reminded a little bit of Napoleon Dynamite.
You feel for the kid because he shows up and for whatever reason he's supposed to, I don't know, you get like that there's like auditions or something. I guess they're doing like a talent show. And I just love that it opens with a high school dance group doing My Neck, My Back. They're doing a dance to that.
So inappropriate. It's so great.
And so he goes up there and he's trying to do his piece, but he just can't do it. He just kind of freezes or whatever and kind of does the Charlie Brown kind of, and then it becomes cyberbullied by kids online who videoed him, which sadly, like, I don't have kids or even nieces or nephews who are that young who are on that stuff. But I have a friend of mine who's kind of an uncle. Well, he is an uncle to these two young kids. And he's like, man, you have no idea. It's like, we used to get it out on the schoolyard and then we could at least go home. It's like these kids get it on the schoolyard and then they get it, on social media and texting. And so he goes, yeah, it's rough stuff out there for kids nowadays. It's even worse than when we were kids. So.
No, and now with like AI, you can make these videos of people and having them do things. I mean, there was an episode of South Park a few weeks ago that was talking all about that. And I was like, well, that's actually a very true thing that's going on. It's not just something made up by cartoonists.
Because the company is in such bad straits. They're trying to fight back against the bad press that they're getting. It's tanking their stock. They're worried about this former employee who's got all this information on them. And so they send the killer nuts out to do what they do against JJ, and this is one of the things that I really like about this movie as well, is that unlike the 84 version, which focuses on a love interest and it becomes, the couple and all of that stuff, this is really about a father and son story, or should I say step parent story. And I thought that was a good choice as opposed to focusing on a romantic story, because again, I think kind of like if they would have had a guy who becomes a 6.5 foot, 7 foot Hulk, we've been like, yeah, been there, done that. We already saw that.
Because there is a blind character in here. There's an attack at it's a burger joint, and there's a blind character in there. So I was like, okay, this is nice. A little nod, that she doesn't end up being the love interest was good. And yeah, I was very glad that, if anything, the investigative journalist, the woman that we see at the very beginning, she's not really the love interest, but she fits that third part. It's like a false family that eventually develops through this. And I don't see her being with Winston when we're done with this whole thing, but it was nice that we do have, if there's any sort of reconciliation, it's between Winston and his son, rather than, oh yeah, now there's a woman that I love and she misunderstands me and then we have to get back together, which I know that they don't even have that in the original Toxic Avenger. It's very, very much a pure love that happens. And even when the blind girl gets her sight back, she still thinks that Toxie is just the best thing since sliced bread.
The killer nuts are tracking down JJ. She comes back to the factory. Winston comes to the factory because he's like, well, fuck it. If they're not going to help me, then I'm going to rob the joint. So he makes the mop originally he must know, because he cleans up the place, what stuff is more caustic than anything else.
Yeah, super caustic, it says on the, on the side of the barrel.
So he makes the really toxic mop that looks like a smoldering jet of green stuff, and he ends up trying to take off with a bunch of money. He robs the bank or something there at work. And on the way out, instead of in the 84 original, he's mocked and teased and he jumps out the window into a vat of chemicals. This one, the killer nuts are supposed to kill JJ and get rid of her, but they end up shooting Winston and throwing him into a giant pool of chemicals along with the mop. And again, we get this nice echo with the use of Night on Bald Mountain, which is also the transformation scene in the 84. But here's the other thing that I was thinking about this time as I was watching it. It's similar in a way, although he falls in because it's at a chemical factory, to Killing Joke, Batman, which became the basis for the 89 Batman. That's the whole, Nicholson falling into the vat and becoming the Joker. So it's interesting that instead of falling into a single 55-gallon drum of toxic sludge, it's a big giant, factory vat. So.
Well, and it's a factory vat that's outside and easily available. And we have this bird that we see throughout this entire movie. Like, we see it in the opening credits. The opening credits are animated, and you see this animation of this bird of some sort. Would not propose to say what type of bird it is. And it takes a little sip of the water and ends up being transformed. And then you see a puppet version of that bird throughout the rest of this, even when Winston wakes up as the Toxic Avenger. And the first thing he sees is that bird, and its eyes are just kind of spinning and stuff. And you're going to get that bird throughout the rest of the film, all the way up until, I think, one of the last shots of the film, not including the denouement with the dance sequence.
And that bird also gets us to the next part where when he crawls out of the vat and he meets the bird and then he tries to go home and he doesn't try the front door. He decides on going up the fire escape. And he tries to talk to Wade. He's like, hey, Wade. And he's like, and he kicks him out the window, basically, into the alley. And so this leads to this whole kind of Frankenstein-esque chase the monster scene that we get.
No mobs. And I was like, all right, let's mob.
The cop, yeah. Because earlier we saw that, and this is a nice little sort of setting up the theme, where their landlady is being harassed to sell her property. And so this is the guy who comes back later to get the agreement signed, and that's where he meets Toxie, and we get the first, of, again, another echo of someone getting their arm ripped off, which is, that leads to the whole Frankenstein mob. But when he runs off to the dump, this is where we learn about the bird a little bit. It's kind of a throwaway line, but there's a philosophical bum who lives in the dump. Like, Toxie doesn't actually live in the dump in this movie. It's this philosophical bum that's played by David Yao of Jesus Lizard. And so fucking good in this. He's hilarious. And especially his whole thing about Winston wakes up. He's like, I'm dying. Oh, you're dying. And there's the whole, he goes off on this thing about, oh, we'll have a fucking parade for you then. And all of this.
Dying, he says. Well, why didn't you say something before? Make way for the big parade. We got ticker tape and there's confetti. Oh, look, here comes the big brass marching band. A boom, 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 boom. And great big, sexy, long-legged women, high-kicking ladies. And then there's a little train. There's a miniature train. And you can ride it in circles and eat cotton candy until your fucking heart bursts with joy. Because, hey, folks, he is dying. Yeah, well, big whoop a year. Great big, okay, suck it's all dick whoop.
But he explains that the dump there used to be like the nature preserve for this certain bird. I can't remember the name of the bird off the top of my head. I didn't take a note on it. But it's just this idea that, again, this goes through the other Toxie movies. This is another echo where it's like the company takes over and they start contaminating like parks and all the stuff, which in Mr. Melvin, that's what happens in there too. So
I really like this bum. I really like this whole scene. And there's a quietness to this movie that we don't get in the sequels that we'll be talking about. Like, there are moments where it's like, this is a nice scene. And they have this in the original Toxic Avenger where you see like a montage of like, all right, now he is the Toxic Avenger. We're going to do these shots of like nature and him running through the fields and everything. And you get very similar with Winston here, where he's running through the field with his mop and all this. And it's kind of like, all right, yeah, like kind of reminds me a little bit of like the end shot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Leatherface and just like his triumph, as it were, and almost like his victory dance that he does.
The other thing too that you could say, it's kind of a joke, I guess, maybe on Kung Fu or something, where it's almost like this guy who's living out in the middle of nowhere like reintroduces him to the mop. He's like, here, this is, it's almost like Excalibur or something. It's like he's trying to do the, with great power comes great responsibility kind of thing, but he's fucking up the line like really bad, but we all understand what he means. He sends him off on his way and he's like, show them you're not a monster, like show them your good heart, and that'll be okay. So this then brings us to another echo. In the original, it's the Mexican restaurant, which is the big sort of action set piece. And once he becomes Toxie, but in here, it's called Miss Meat. It used to be called Mr. Meat. And it's been taken over by a bunch of political terrorists called the Nasty Lads, who are upset about the change of the mascot. Now, this was a couple of years before this, but this made me all of a sudden think about culture war nonsense like, oh, they're changing the Cracker Barrel logo. What the fuck?
Absolutely. And I was like, when did this come out? Okay. And yeah, the Miss Meat logo itself is awful. Where it's like a woman's body with a hamburger instead of a head. I'm just like, what are you doing?
It's just a pair of ladies' legs with a hamburger, for the rest of it. And the whole thing with them, like they open the door and it's like, this because, Western civilization is being destroyed, so you have this whole thing about like, I don't know, like the Proud Boys or something. And it also made me think of other culture war nonsense, like when Bud Light, sponsored this trans influencer on Instagram, and that led to a whole kerfuffle on Fox News and all that stuff. Just bullshit, it's just total fucking bullshit that has no use for anyone. I like the fact that these like right-wing terrorists are like, are you triggered? Are you triggered? They're like going up to people in the restaurant. Does this trigger you? And all this. And that's where you get the blind woman. And you get an echo of the line from the original movie, which is they're going to assault this one woman in the 84 version. And then Toxie comes in and saves the day. But in this one, they don't get through the line.
Yeah, that's the cornholing, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Line. But I just love that when Toxie shows up in here, it's like, who are you? And it's like, just nobody special, just a dude with a mop.
And then just the levels of violence that go on. I mean, especially the shot of the guy's buttocks and having his innards pulled out through his ass was pretty good, and then thrown into the mop bucket. Yeah, there's a lot of good violence in here. To the point where I was like, how many terrorists were in this restaurant? Because you are killing a lot of people.
There is a part of me that is glad they didn't do kind of Gus Van Sant Psycho on this, because the creative ways in which people are killed in the 84 version, I'm glad they didn't like, oh, we're going to make you into a hamburger or something, and throw them on the grill or, so they didn't go there. I mean, it's much shorter as a action set piece than in the original film. This also, post this, introduces him to the world because the TV crew's there covering it.
Right, yeah, and you've got the one guy from the restaurant. It's like, hold on. This man saved us. I love how quickly the chyrons get updated, because you're talking about the Nasty Lads or whatever for the name of the terrorist group, and it says that they nail their nickname. I was just like, that's cool. And then like how quickly they turn when they're now interviewing Toxie, and it says happy ending for hostage hullabaloo.
All of the TV stuff in here really has this kind of RoboCop flavor, where it's very heightened. There's lots of chyrons, there's things moving around, and then there's also this sort of like point counterpoint, Jane, you stupid slut, kind of where the man and the woman are the co-anchors, but he is like obviously very conservative and just thinks that the woman is ridiculous and all this liberal nonsense. And so I really like the fact that instead of it all being one way, it comments on several different things at the same time. And the use of the media piece that pops up throughout the film is, I think, really well done.
RoboCop is a really good pull with the way that we're commenting on things through the news media.
In the original film with comment on the news media, there's a little bit of like interviews, but it's mostly newspaper headlines. It's the old spinning newspaper headline bit. But obviously people don't read anymore. We're all literate. So we just watch TV and look at the
Did you say something?
Exactly.
Going back to some of the jokes as well, I do really appreciate, speaking of screens, the use of Kevin Bacon constantly smashing the screens in his office, and the one guy who keeps going up and cleaning them off after he smashes them, and it's like, it's never going to work again, buddy. And then as they get smashed more and more, the guy just gets more and more upset, and just that like eye roll, like, oh, here we go again. Now I have to change this set as well.
His everything reminded me exactly of Gary Oldman's Everyone.
Oh, Bacon is just so great. I always appreciate that guy so much. And just as he's gotten older, he just seems to embrace the ridiculousness.
He's swinging for the fences in here. And that's the thing that I really like, is that everyone in here really understands the tone. Part of it has to do with the fact that the director also wrote the script, because I think that if you had a director who just got a script and was going to direct it, they might not understand exactly what it is they were trying to do. But since it's all in one package, I think that willingness to kind of go for it and to be big and to be large, it adds so much to the material and makes it such a fun film to watch.
Well, and then his cameo is pretty good as well.
There's a double cameo later, so we'll talk about that. So the first time he shows up as a director is actually not too far from this, which is when, after the goons come after Toxie and they've kidnapped Wade and they send him to Chudhaven, there's also this performance, because they talk about in the opening that there's going to be like this community festival, and of course the Killer Nuts are the big band there that everyone loves, so they're going to perform. And so Toxie decides to show up, and this is where it becomes this battle between two beloved locals, because the band, we've already established that everyone loves this band, and Toxie becomes a hero because of the Miss Meat hostage scenario. So when he shows up, and this is where we get another echo to the, I will say, the Troma universe generally, the use of Motorhead on the soundtrack. He uses Overkill, like, of course, Overkill, because will be. And he takes down the whole band, just kills them all, except for one, the chicken head guy.
And that reveal. Oh my God, when that reveal happens, what's under that chicken head? I don't want to ruin it for anybody. That was something. That was really something.
I thought that was pretty funny.
I was kind of surprised because at one point, the investigative reporter lady, she gets shot, and they take her back out to the dump, and, oh, I know a doctor, that the Jesus Lizard guy, I know a doctor. He's like, who said I was a doctor? It's like, you did. You told me you were a doctor. And he can't do anything. He's too worried about like cooking hot dogs. And then Toxie uses his blood to help her heal. I thought for sure that there was going to be some sort of transformation of her towards the end where she would become like a second Toxic Avenger.
That's one of those things where I was like, oh, okay, I guess it would just heal someone, which then explains later, because when they end up going to Chudhaven, which I love as a word, and they get captured by the scientists, and they start pulling the goo out of Toxie over, like 3 times. It's like, you're going to kill him. There's not enough in there. Like, do it again. So they keep doing it, and then they refine it down, I guess. So that's the difference, is they've refined it into a vial, and it's like, we think this might work. This may be the thing that's going to save the company, is we have this restoration goo or something that people can take.
It's very Catwoman, with Sharon Stone looking for that new formula for youth. I feel that that's some appropriate comparison. But also at the same time, it reminded me a little bit of Swamp Thing. And just that whole thing of the Louis Jourdan character being like, okay, yeah, like here's this stuff that transformed Ray Wise into the other guy, very similar, having 2 actors playing Swamp Thing. And then they use that, and the way that they use it on, I can't remember the actor's name, but Bruno, and he turns into little Bruno. And then eventually Louis Jourdan takes it and he turns into that big werewolf type creature. Really felt very similar to when they have the transformation of Kevin Bacon at the end. And I kept trying to figure out who he reminded me of when he transforms into this beast. I really couldn't ever put my finger on it. It looks very mythological with the horns and the face and everything.
Because I guess they're trying to say that he's in league with the devil or something, but it has this kind of horns and kind of Billy Goat, looking thing. Of course, when Bob does this, he also dispatches the gangsters, because the gangsters have come back to get their money, and leads to the Battle of the Mutants. And there's a great line in here, that I really love, because there's several different scenes between Toxie and Bacon's character where they kind of trade lines with each other. It's kind of a little meta nod to the audience, where it's like, no, that's a hat on a hat. You can't do that. Like, that doesn't work.
That was nice. I like that.
It doesn't work. It's like, what? It's like, whatever, And then, so there's another one of those where they're like about to fight. And it's like, I lost everything. And it's like, and then Bob's like, well, we're not so different, because I also like to scream everything.
I think I put my finger on it. I think what Bob reminds me of is the lawgiver from the island of Dr. Moreau, who's got he looks like an old Ram man type of thing. And Bob's makeup changes throughout. Like, he keeps getting worse as it goes along, to the point where his fingernails feel like they're a foot long at least.
That's the great thing about it, is the transformation isn't like right off, because I would say it's almost like the first time you see him turn around and then attack the gangster guys, he just looks like a crazed vampire or something. Like, his mouth is all red and his eyes are weird, and then he gets more into this like goat kind of dude.
Yeah, because his assistant takes like the last little dregs of that. And I keep saying assistant. I think at one point she corrects him and says, no, I'm an associate instead of an assistant. And she gets the last little drips of it. And it basically, I think it just transforms her face a little bit, makes her hair pretty wild. But I love that she's just like, oh, if Bob's doing this, then I want to do it too. But she gets kind of pissed off that there's not enough formula to go around.
She looks kind of like kabuki makeup, but then like washed out in the rain or something. Like it's very kind of red and streaky. And
she reminds me of Joanna Lumley and Ab Fab.
You just end up with this mutant fight that takes place. They end up out in the middle of, I don't know, it looks like the wasteland or something. Maybe that's the crossover with Mad Max.
Yeah, well, they do say that's desolate wasteland outside of town. Again, those chyrons for where people are at is fantastic.
Toxie just gets on top of him at one point and pounds him and just said, you just should have helped me. That just really being the main theme. It's just those who have want more and could care less about those who are in need. And so I really get that as the theme they're literally pounding home into Kevin Bacon's character's face.
Of all the people to fuck over, that you always make your employees the first ones to do so. Like the employees are the first ones to suffer before the rest of the world does, and it's like, maybe charity begins at home here. Maybe take care of those people and they won't try to rob you and turn into, mutants and try to ruin your empire.
At the same time, Winston is under the impression that Wade is dead because he saw this shed that his stepson was in just blow up and there was nothing left right around the time that the mutant fight starts on the grounds of Chudhaven. We learn he was actually saved by Fritz because Fritz comes to understand maybe helping out my crazy asshole brother isn't so good idea.
Yeah, so some redemption for Fritz, which is nice. I feel like he could fully embrace the goodness in the world and maybe actually use some of his skills for that, because it feels like he's probably the more talented of the two brothers.
At the same time, he did send the killer nuts after everyone, so I guess he's got to pay for that.
In some way, he does.
Toxie ends up in the hospital after Bob is no more. And here's where we understand who the blind lady is in Miss Meat Restaurant. She is with the FBI, and she's been investigating BTH and says, hey, we're going to try to do our best to help you kind of deal with your life post all of this. And the doctor shows up again. We get the echo of the doctor scene.
He shows up and he's just sitting there, and Winston doesn't know that he's there. So when he starts to talk, he's like, what the hell?
And he's eating something. He's like, what is it? And he like tells him what he's eating.
It's
he's like, no, not that.
Right.
He's like, not that. He's trying. So what we learn is that getting dunked into that vat of toxic materials cured him of his brain tumor. So he's fine. He's just hideously deformed. That's all.
For the rest of his life. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Unless something might happen to rip him out of that body, maybe like Satan, but I think I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, here in the hospital is, and this is the thing with sort of the Toxic Avenger movies, is usually in the end, the community is either there to watch the big confrontation or they come together to like honor the hero. There's always this, I guess you could say Frank Capra, It's a Wonderful Life moment where it's like, oh, we're all here for you, kind of thing. This is where we also get the double director cameo here.
Yeah, that was nice. I was waiting for Lloyd to show up at some point in this.
He actually gets some lines and goes back and forth with Macon Blair, who's the director of this version of Toxie, as opposed to just being in the background like James Gunn has put him in his last few movies. So I still think Lloyd should maybe get a speaking role in Superman 2, but we'll see.
He is now part of the MCU and hopefully soon to be the DCU too.
And so that gets us to the end. And you had talked about there were two files that you had. There was one that was like 10 minutes longer, and that is the credit sequence. So the longer version has the credit sequence, which is the dance, the performance piece that Wade does with the credits. I love that like Macon Blair's kind of fucking with everyone who's so used to with superhero movies for the post-credit sequence. So the post-credit sequence is just Toxie making grilled cheese and telling you how to do a grilled cheese. And then there's even one more post credits, which is a card that comes up and talks about, the sequel. It's just so ridiculous in terms of what it's going to be. And
yeah, I was wondering if they were going to have post-credit sequence. So I said, I'd better check it out just to make sure. I didn't use my Run Key app to see if there was going to be anything. So yeah, I was glad I stuck around for those.
I just thought that post-credit joke card was pretty funny, where it's like Toxie will return in Toxic Avenger Toxie versus Dracula versus the Unicorn Horn in space, presented in dildo vision, where allowed by law. Sequel greenlight provisional on $1 billion box office domestic. Tell your friends.
All right, we're going to take a break and play an interview with the co-founder of Troma, writer, director, Lloyd Kaufman. Rob, do you want to set this one up a little bit for me?
Yeah, I got a chance to talk to Lloyd. He happened to be at home, and this is just around the holiday season, so it may seem a little disjointed. I did my best to kind of cut it around. He had family coming around bothering him for things, and you're even introduced at one point to, I believe, his granddaughter, who's, I think, 3 years old. So,
oh, cute. Wow. Nice.
But I think also it kind of adds a little something to the interview, so that's why I decided to edit around it. So just give it a listen. You know, for me, it's always fun to catch up with Lloyd, and you know, we really haven't had him on the show. Like you noted, we did a series of shows back in 2012 and I think 2013. So it's probably been well over a decade since he's been on the projection booth,
and still going strong. All right, we'll be back with that right after these brief messages. Looking for something superior to streaming, a place with more than 5 times the selection available on all of the streaming services combined? Check out Scarecrow Video's Rent by Mail service. Select from an unparalleled collection of over 150,000 films and get Blu-rays, 4Ks, and DVDs delivered directly to your door. Get in on it now at scarecrow.com and rediscover the wonders of physical media.
Thank you very much for your time and appreciate it.
Well, always. Like I say, I'm glad that you're feeling somewhat better and doing all right.
Oh, no, I've gone to the office. We filmed today. It's just I get back pain, so I have to got to take drugs, you know, and where are you?
I moved from Detroit. I'm in Albuquerque now.
That Albuquerque is where Ace in the Hole, Kirk Douglas's and Billy Wilder's masterpiece. The excesses of sensational journalism is terrific. Takes place in Albuquerque, but they actually shot it in Gallup, New Mexico.
The one that they shot here, speaking of Kirk Douglas, is Lonely Are the Brave.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, also, what's his name did some pretty good shooting in Albuquerque not too long ago. He's a movie star, I believe. But he unfortunately shot a camera woman.
Oh, yeah. Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, that's it. But I can tell you in 52 years of Troma, and everybody looks down on us, everybody, poo-poo. We've never, knock on wood, of course, we've never had a serious injury. We've never had an injury that I know of. Yeah. We had an epidemic of COVID last summer when we were filming Power of Positive Murder. We had about 13 of our cast, including one of the stars who immediately got COVID. And we had to shoot around that. And perhaps the largest item in our art department was those instant COVID detectors. We had to spend a couple of $1,000 on those things. And we had one registered nurse and one person who had taken nursing. And every morning before the shoot, they'd go around testing everybody. And there were about 100 people there. So, sleeping in 6 to a room, that kind of stuff. Each person that got COVID, we had to sequester, and then they were all on different sequestering periods. It was a whole other production.
I was thinking about that because you said in terms of always being safe to people. When I met you, it's hard to believe it's been this long, but when I met you, you were finishing up Terra Firma, and I remember that's safety to humans, safety to property, make a good movie.
Yeah, that's right. It's built right into the movie within the movie. Yeah, that's right, and it's very important. We put those posters up of the 3 rules of production that you just articulated. We asked the art department to make very nice posters. Some of them were in the ones in Terra Firma weren't so nice, but they were kind of what we do, and we put them everywhere to try to brainwash the young people and most of the people that have worked for us. In fact, I would say everybody who's worked for us over the 52 years of Troma, they've been fans. They start, Andrew, who may have set this appointment up, he came on to Power of Positive Murder as a kind of a driver, old-time assistant, and he did so well that now he's producing Poultrygeist, Poultrygeist 2, the power by Mercedes the Muse, which has been shot and it's now being edited. Looks great. So and James Gunn, he just was a fan, but he could have worked anywhere because he had an MA from Columbia University. He had written a book which I read, very good, but he was a Troma fan. And he wanted to get some, in the trenches experience, Troma style, and all the great people that have come out of Troma, including the South Park guys. They're all great people, and they all have helped keep our company afloat in an age of cartelism, mobsterism, and worse. I have Trump controlling the movie business, right? All the studio heads, Mr. Paramount, right, and others ran out to lick the ass of a Arabian sheik who chopped up some poor Turkish bastard. No, Washington Post reporter. He wasn't even Turkish. It was in the Turkish embassy. Made him into hamburger, and there's Trump and all our the what do you call it? The nucleus of our American know-how and genius, kissing the ass of this murderer. Trump's also a murderer. Those poor fishermen.
Yeah. I was thinking about, if there's one thing that you'll always be remembered for, no matter what, it is the Toxic Avenger and creating this, little guy who fights for the rights of people. And when I met you was around the time that you did your book and Terra Firma, and then it wasn't too long after that you were working on like a bigger film, and now just this past year we've had this I don't know, do you want to call it a reimagining, a reboot? When I met you, it was just a little bit after that. I remember there was this long process of you working on, I don't know, a bigger budget reimagining or something, and just this last year we had that, so it came out broader to.
Well, there were numerous iterations of the reimagining. It took about 20 years before the thing finally. It had nothing to do with us, just different people, different very good directors tried to make it happen, and they weren't able to. Adam Rifkin was the very first, and then I think Scorsese, then De Palma, and luckily for us, Macon Blair came along with Legendary. Bravo for them that they chose Macon Blair, and then this wonderful cast, all of whom were Macon Blair colleagues and serious Troma fans, like they know Terra Firma and all the movies that our fans love, and that whenever I would be with them, that's all they talked about. It was like they were having intellectual discussions about, Return to Nukem High and Return to Nukem High and stuff like that.
What was it that, as it went through that process, what were the things that other people were getting kind of hung up on when it came to making it before this happened?
I had nothing to do with any of it. I don't give a fuck. I just want the money so we can keep the doors open. And lucky fucking for us, we had gotten front money in the past, but they weren't able to put it to, other Hollywood bigwigs, but they weren't able to put it to. In fact, the Hot Tub Time Machine guy was going to direct it for a while. Great guy, a terrific guy, and very talented. He's no Macon Blair, but we got lucky with Macon Blair, and he made a really good movie, better than the original Toxie. And as I say, couldn't have done a better job. I can take no credit. I gave notes, but Macon Blair correctly ignored them, and he went on to make a great movie, I think. And who cares what anyone else thinks? I'm 80 years old. I can think anything I want. And that movie is good. It is. It really is. And if you deconstruct it a bit, it's artful. It's very artful because the pathos of Toxie is there from the first movie, but in a way it's stepped up because it's familial pathos, but this time not the blonde blind bimbo significant other, but this time it's a stepson, not just a son, but a stepson, which, there's always issues with. I had a stepmother, and she was the best. She was a saint, but she called herself wicked stepmother, and Cinderella, and a lot of families have difficulties with the integrated families, and I don't mean sexually integrated. I meant blended families, as they call them these days. It's rough, and I think Macon was brilliant to put that into it. And what's his Tremblay, the young guy who's in it, he's Canadian, and he was like 15 when he played the part, I think, or 16 maybe. And he's terrific, smart. He's fucking smart. He's a great actor. He was terrific. We had 7,000 people in the room with us when they opened in San Diego Comic-Con. That's where the red carpet and all the was. And Tremblay was up there with the veterans and Macon and the full, Peter Dinklage and everybody. And there he was. He was really good. They all were great. They were all terrific. Taylor Page, beautiful and hearts, tugs at your heartstrings, and of course she's in wonderful shows and movies.
For me, it was exciting. I had opportunity to go on opening day when it came out, and because not just because you put out my movie, but I've always been a fan, and I was looking forward to what he was going to do with it, and I thought it hit the level just right. There's some fan service in there. If you're a fan of the first movie, you're going to pick up on the certain little things, but it's its own thing, and I really enjoyed it. I thought he did a fantastic job.
He did a fantastic job, if I may say so, a toxerific job. And he's a great guy and a nice family, lives in Austin, Macon Blair, that is. And he's making a movie right now. I'm supposed to be in it as a cameo. I'm waiting, Macon. I'm waiting. I'm still alive. Hurry up.
This was definitely, you're involved in the production, but there's not... I know that there was kind of a year and a half before it went from the festivals to going out. Do you have any idea as to why they held it up?
What do you think? This is an industry of followers, and this movie was an intelligent movie, a rendering of an underground superhuman hero. And the people didn't get it. They took time for people to get it. I think. My involvement was purely cheerleading and being there for the cast and making and showing support. I can't claim any credit, and other than it's a wonderful film. And I have a question: where and when did you see it?
I saw it here in Albuquerque, and it showed at the Cinemark.
And what time of day was it, may I ask?
Well, the weekend it opened, they had, I think they had four showings that day, and I think I had that Friday off, so I think I went to the first show. I think I went to noon or something.
No, thanks for going. Anybody in the theater?
Yeah, there was. I think it wasn't in the largest house, but I'd say there was a good 20-25 people, and I could tell that they were our people, and they were laughing at the right points, and
Great. Yeah. Well, it will continue. It's a beautiful film. Just the transformation scene alone could be put up in the Whitney Museum's annual video show in the Whitney. You just take that transformation, put that on the wall. It's beautiful by itself, and it even calls back to Toxie's original music, Night on Bald Mountain, I think it was.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that was the thing. It was all the little nods back to you, you know.
The problem I think is that you didn't have any intelligent critics. They were all kind of, caught in the past. They didn't realize, I think, what a great, masterpiece this is. And I think over time, like the original Toxie, it will, I think, take time to be more established. What are you going to do? It's in the fullness of time. I have no. Macon Blair is going to go on to keep going as a major director without a doubt, and he's got a good group of people with whom he works. Like Murder Party and Green Room, and his childhood friend, whose name I can Laura, some kind of a Frenchish name. They work together a lot. And as does what's his name? Who's the guy in Peter Jackson movies?
Elijah Wood.
Yeah, Elijah. He loves Troma, and he loves Macon, and Macon loves him. And it's a great group of talented people, and they'll go on to make a lot more good movies. I guarantee you. I don't know if Lloyd Kaufman, as a artist, is talented, but I do know I have a talent for recognizing talent, and Macon Blair is definitely one of those people, as is Tremblay, whose name I've unfortunately forgot. But his parents were great fans, and so is he. But for a young kid, he's going to be a huge star. I'm certain of it.
When I was in town, Andrew got me a copy of Mr. Melvin, speaking of Toxie, the original version. And I wanted to ask you about how that came together, because I knew the two separate, Toxie 2 and 3. Can you explain what Mr. Melvin is?
Well, that's the nice thing about Troma. We don't make any money, but we have all these crazy young people. And unbeknownst to Michael Herz or me, Andrew Miller, and who's now producing Poultrygeist by Mercedes Muse, he and Adam Peltier, the star of Power of Positive Murder, who, by the way, is directing his first feature at this very moment, found the original script, Mr. Melvin, in our basement. And our workers very often go through our basement to find stuff. Like Matt Mangiarides found about 8 reels of Super 8 behind-the-scenes movies that I shot about the making of Rocky when I was on it. And I didn't even know, I didn't remember I shot them. I used Super 8 to do casting of squeeze play, waitress, stuck on, before digital. And I would cast and rehearse in Super 8. And I took the camera with me on Rocky, and I filmed a lot of behind the scenes long before, it was done, before the making of movies were done. So now when you go to the box set of all the Rocky films, there's my home movies, but I sent them on to the director, John G. Avildsen. He cut about 3 hours down to 20 minutes, and then he and I wrote narration, and it shows you how the 8 Days in Philadelphia, which made the film, were done like a Troma movie. Non-union crew from Cry Uncle, which is on Troma now, by the way. That was the movie that John G. Avildsen directed before Rocky, which I had a small part in producing, and now we have distribution on it. And nobody knows about it, but it's a terrific movie. It's hilarious, and it shows John G. Avildsen's genius to take basically garbage and make it into a money-making, hilarious movie. A good movie, too. It still had sex and stuff in it, but totally different. And originally, Cry Uncle was going to be sort of a softcore James Bond type of low-budget thing. And the Lee Hessel, the money guy, agreed to let John hire a writer, Norman Wexler, who wrote Joe, which was John's first hit. Joe and MGM. It's distributed by MGM. Peter Boyle's first movie, Susan Sarandon. My first kind of big time job. I was cleaning toilets or whatever. I talk about it in one of my books, and it's terrific. Joe has got 150,000 bucks, all unknowns, unknown director, made in New York, and yet got nominated for best screenplay, which you wouldn't. No way would that happen today. Didn't matter how good the script was, didn't matter how who would never happen. But at any rate, that did happen, and that got John the Cry Uncle gig and Lee Hessel, luckily, who was basically imported kind of weird, kind of softcore European movies like Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS and Swedish Minx and Anita Swedish Nymphette, that kind of stuff. And I raised a little money for it, so I got in on the inside of Cry Uncle and I saw the inner workings. And then when John Avildsen got the Rocky gig, they didn't have enough money to film in Philadelphia, the Hollywood crowd, because Stallone was unknown and nobody in the movie was a big star. So they had us organize the Philadelphia shoot. And it would have stayed there in Philadelphia with the non-union. In fact, the crew from Cry Uncle is the crew that shot this great stuff in Philadelphia for Rocky. And when you see my behind-the-scenes footage, you can see how it was like a Troma movie, Pizza for Lunch. We were shooting in the streets of South Philly, and the people whose houses were, whose exteriors, they were nice enough to hose down the street at night to make it shiny, and it was a real team effort, and it worked out great. And then the truck drivers found us, and that was the end of filming it.
So you were saying that they found the script for the original idea,
yes. And they on their own, nobody paid them. In fact, we were a little pissed off that they wasted all that time. But they reconstructed Mr. Melvin the way it was originally written. They took parts 1 and 2 and reintegrated, and as a result, Phoebe Leger's performance and the two actors, Ron Fazio and John Altamura, who played Toxie, I couldn't believe it. They're so good. And I never really got it because we had to chop the movie up. The theater refused to, they wouldn't play a longer movie because Troma's, we're in the ghetto, we ride the back, we're second class or eighth class citizens. So we couldn't get into the oligopoly theater chains. So we had to make 2 movies in order to get into their play. They have to have so many shows per hour per day or whatever. I don't know. They want to sell popcorn and whatever.
Right.
So we had to break up the movies into 2, which actually worked out okay on video cassette because we got lucky there. But the movie's so much better as Mr. Melvin, and that becomes very obvious. And if by any chance there are theaters in Albuquerque, I'm sure that Andrew and Adam Peltier would be able to get down there and host Mr. Melvin. I'd come down. But at any rate, it'd be there's 50 years of Troma. It'd be a great way to show young people who with ingenuity, and they restored something that the American Cinematheque should have done, or the American Film Institute should have done instead of fucking around with Michael Bay's movies.
When you were reacquainted with this, I mean, with your old movie, I mean, the idea that you originally had, I mean, it must have been like, I don't know, like rediscovering a child that you lost or something. I don't know. What was sort of your...
Well, the first time I saw it was in a movie theater, and it preceded the new Toxic Avenger at a historic landmark movie theater in Hollywood, and a big theater, and I was astounded at how good the movie is, and how good and how excellent Phoebe Leger, especially her performance, is terrific. And she and I didn't get along very well during the movie. I mean, I knew she was brilliant, but I didn't really. She was a little difficult. She was difficult. She was difficult, as was I. And so we've been at loggerheads, and I don't know how I can't remember how we finished off. It wasn't great. She came to Cannes Film Festival with us and was terrific. But anyway, it wasn't. It was always a bit weird.
Yeah.
And then we see Mr. Melvin, and oh my God, she's so good in it, and as are the Toxies. And the way the thing flows through Japan and then back to Tromaville and Toxie with his father and that whole familial pathos and disappointment and the cute gyno she was a big movie star in Japan. The Toxie's kind of gyno friend who we met in Japan. All the Japanese important actors in Toxic Avenger Part II were famous Japanese stars. So it was huge in Japan, but it would have been a lot better if it stayed as Mr. Melvin. They would have liked it better.
Do you know when that's planning to go out? Like, are you going to be able to put it up on Troma now or on Blu-ray or anything?
Eventually, we will do that. We'll do some kind of a crazy box set, but we have no money. It should be out there Blu-ray with the Citizen, maybe we put the 2 and 3 separately, and then I don't know what we do, but we don't have any money anyway. So put it in a movie. We're trying to get movie theaters. So that gets us a few bucks, and fans have really loved it. In fact, it did better than the big $50 million Toxic Avenger when it played in L.A. at 2 theaters. Did better with no advertising, just the kind of our social platforms.
Yeah.
Oh, Pat, can you get that, please? Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Life happens.
My wife is the New York commissioner of all media for New York City, and unfortunately, she has somebody coming over here, drivers coming in for a Christmas drink. But she was, for 20 years, New York State Film Commissioner, where she really made a difference. She wrote the tax incentive that brought billions of dollars to New York in production prior to COVID. And the result was about 20 new sound stages being built in New York City and upstate. And then she retired to make hashtag Shakespeare Shitstorm with Justin Martell and John Brennan. And then because of COVID and a new mayor, they called her back for the city because the city had lost a lot of business due to COVID and the strike. So they needed her to come back because she's totally devoted to the taxpayers. And she's as nice to the student filmmaker as she is to Woody Allen. She believes in creating a local, a local film industry. So we don't have to rely on cartel and oligopolies and what have you.
Yeah, Pat's great. Like I said, I haven't seen her since, probably almost 20 years ago when I was hanging out with you. Yeah.
Lily Hayes's movie, Occupy Cannes, our daughter's movie, as I mentioned, it's a wonderful documentary about Troma at the Cannes Film Festival, our last year there, for sure. Basically got kicked out. But it's a great chronicle of that and very good for filmmakers, called Occupy Cannes. And it's made all the genre festivals. It's still going in festivals, but the commissioner and I accompanied Lily Hayes to Czechoslovakia and about 5 other European and Canadian places. And standing ovation. It's terrific. But in Poland, my wife fell down and broke her arm, and my back went out in the airplane because of long airplane. We had all these consecutive flights. But her broken arm is a big problem. So
yeah.
Anyway, she's commissioner with a one-armed film commissioner. Sounds like a title for a film noir, which Occupy Cannes is inspired. I'm sorry, Occupy Cannes is a for film students, again, would be good because it's educational about film sales, at least Troma style. And also it's got a lot of laughs. It's funny as fuck. And also rather bittersweet, showing how we're policed out by the Cannes Film Festival 7-foot security people. The Cannes police, France police love Troma, and we've been there since '71. But now with all the corporate stuff and over bloated bureaucracy, they got to cater more to their own elites and the big movies, and it's a different picture. It's not a festival anymore, but we got kicked out anyway, I think. I don't think we'll come back unless I'm invited back with Occupy Cannes. And A Power of Positive Murder is supposed to be a film noir inspired by Crime and Punishment, supposed to reflect the hopelessness of today's American, how do you call them, college graduate kind of people, people of that age who have no hope because of the progress of the deterioration of the American society, deterioration of the schools, the fact that a smaller number of people have more and more of the wealth, and everybody else is living paycheck to paycheck, and 20 million Americans can't eat. My grandmother predicted all this. She saw it coming when I was a child, and she gave me a lot of books to read that have proven truth. A lot of blacklisted authors, but they were right. We're fucked. News is we're going to protect ourselves against those fishermen from Venezuela. God damn it. There's too much fishing going on. Let's bomb them into the Stone Age.
You shot that last summer in...
Yeah. No, actually, it was 2 summers ago. It was 2. You come to think of it, this is a disgrace. I'm still not finished. God damn it. Well, it took Francis Ford Coppola to do Apocalypse Now 7 years, so I'm not so bad, although our movie's only about $500,000 and was disgracefully not well organized. And we're going to shoot more this weekend. Woody Allen, thanks to my wife, told us that he always saves a little money in his budget so that he can go back during post-production and do some small pieces of the puzzle that he might have missed. And in my case, I missed about 50%. So we're going back this next 2 weeks. We're going to shoot little insert shots that might make the movie slightly less, how shall I say it, a mess.
Well, regardless, mess or not, it's always good to see you and good to get a chance to chat with you. It's been a while.
Thank you, Rob. And I'm very grateful. Michael Herz is very grateful. And Toxie loves you, as you know, loves Albuquerque. Maybe you can get a Mr. Melvin. Why don't you sort of sponsor a screening at a theater in Albuquerque? Aren't there Alamo houses, or they play our movies if we beg them? And I'll come down there. We'll do a show. We'll bring Toxie and make a lot of noise.
I appreciate it, and say thank you to everyone. And
back here is my beautiful daughter, Lisbeth.
Hi, nice to see you.
She's an environmentalist who influenced, of course, grew up with Toxic. Toxie was her older brother, and she has a big part in Troma's War as a kidnapped 18-month-old baby. Directed by James Gunn as a mutant child in Romeo and Juliet. And she was murdered in Kabuki Man, Sergeant Kabuki Man. Yeah. You've had quite a Troma career, and here you are, environmentalist. You're doing good work. Huh?
Who are you talking to?
Well, just an important podcaster.
Are you on a podcast?
Yes, I'm on a podcast.
Oh, I did not realize. Well, nice to meet you.
We're just recording for later. Your dad put out my movie in the late 90s, and I'm just catching up, so it's nice to see him.
Is it on Troma now? God damn it.
Yes, it is.
Yay!
Yes. You can see Tainted on Troma now.
Hold it. Wait a minute. Here's the head of our short... this is the head of our short film department. What's your name?
Hi.
Hi, Maxine.
Hi. Nice to meet you. You having fun hanging out with your granddad?
3.
All right.
3 years old. And what is Chloe Maxine? What does the word begin? What letter of the alphabet do you begin with? Yes.
There you go. Very good. Very good.
Chloe Maxine is in what you have an acting part in Power of Positive Murder. Oh, that's right. You're right. They got an H. Very good.
I have an H also.
All righty. Well, Rob's got to
Very
go
nice.
back. He's about to interview Martin Scorsese and he's going to Paw Patrol. Hey, have you seen? We have these other grandkids, grand monsters. They're much older, but the gyno grandchild is into deep pop demon hunters.
Okay. All right.
I don't know if you've seen it, but it's actually pretty good. I watched it. The music is great, actually, even for an old person. It's very gyno oriented. It's about gyno. You might say non-males, but it's really good for young. We women still, as you call them, still don't have equal rights. We never passed an equal rights amendment. I just wrote the Ahoy Comics has a Toxic Avenger series that does very well, and I write little from the mop pail editorials, and I just wrote one about the fact that women are still second-class citizens. The comic book is not serious, but I blend, as we do with our movies, in my mop pail. They're short letters, and I blend in serious topics with hilarity and satire of Oscar Wildean heights.
That's the thing that I know about you, is that maybe some people don't know, is that you have lovely Pat and you have your daughters. So you're surrounded by, as you say, gyno Americans. So
well, I've been married for 52 years, and I have to say is I don't even know if I still have a penis. You know what I mean? It's hell. It's murder. You cannot imagine having a commissioner for a wife. She worked her way up from a simple school marm because women are right. That's what she had to do. She wanted to run her father's business. He had a nice little independent tech business related to the textile business, but it was tech. He created a tech thing for slub yarning, whatever that is. It's something to do with furniture, but material. But anyway, she wanted to take over the business when she was 12 years old. Her older brother wanted to be an artist. And the father said, oh, no, Jack's going to take the business. So my poor wife had to go up north, become a school teacher. She got an MA at Columbia. And then poor woman met me and married me. And yet she's become a commissioner, New York State, no less. And she's got a real badge for New York City, this golden badge, very heavy. So, and now it's the women are still second-class citizens. My daughter, two of my daughters to rebel, Lily Hayes, who made Occupy Cannes, and Charlotte, who just has the Alabama Solution on the short list for Academy Award documentary. It's on HBO if you want to see a really depressing movie about the American prison system, which is a disgrace, another disgrace that my grandmother alerted me to back in the day. And clearly another way to kill off young black men. But akin to the Vietnam War, that was what they did there. They sent the black guys to get killed. Martin Luther King made a speech about it, and the New York Times vilified him for it. At any rate, Troma Now streaming service, by the way, is very good, and it's got a lot of great movies that we didn't make back in the day, like Frankenhooker and Maniac Cop and many others that are mixed in with the Troma movies. And then we put up about 12 new movies every month by the Trey Parkers and James Gunns of the future. Troma Now is terrific, and it's free the first month if anybody out there wants to try it. And it supports Troma itself. We're always in danger of, we're like the dodo bird on the beach, the last, truly independent movie studio of any dignity and duration. So, it does a dual purpose in subscribing. But first month is free, and if you cannot afford it, our Troma fans, for the most part, are poor. And so they can put another email after the first month and keep going. But if you can afford $4.99 a month, it would sure help us out. That's our only reliable source of paying the payroll and rent and taxes and whatever. So we don't really have any business. Everything's about our fans, and there's no demand, unfortunately. In fact, the YouTubes and the Amazons and all that, they keep lowering what they're paying the independents. And I think Peacock, forgive I know this, the second syllable is annoying, but they are, from what we have read, are eliminating independent films. That I don't mean the so-called independent films by the vassals of the conglomerates, but people like you and me. They're being taken off, and then the ones that keep them, the money they pay you per million views is going down to you need a microscope to figure out how much of a penny they're giving you. In fact, you need an atomic microscope. So Troma now is our only reliable source of revenue to keep us making those great movies and trying to discover new talent and keeping the doors open, Rob.
Well, I'm a proud subscriber, so I want to just let you know that. So
thank you. Sing it to the world. Really appreciate it. And it's TromaDirect.com, which sells our T-shirts and how do you say, physical medium and media and toys and pins and all the Troma merchandise. Has better prices than anywhere else. TromaDirect.com. But a lot of people are using it for Christmas. But after Christmas, there's Valentine's Day.
There you go.
American Spaghetti Day. That's March 8th, I think. Barrel Cactus Week. You know about, you got barrel cactus. You've had a whole week for that. You've had enough of me?
No. One last thing I want to tell you. Because I know it's a couple of weeks away, but I want to wish you a very happy birthday. I know that's coming up for you.
Oh, thank you. But what about Merry Christmas and a happy Chappy Chanukah, and Kwanzaa? And what about you? Are you working on another film, Rob, or writing a book, or what are you doing?
No, I'm just writing. Got some scripts, and I'm working on a couple of novels, but nothing, just for myself.
Well, stay with it, because that's the key. You got to stay with it, and I bet you one of those novels pays off.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you and all the best to you and Pat and family, and you guys have a good holiday.
And you too, Rob. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and I hope that we see each other face to face, and if you'd like to hear me spout, I'm always there for you.
Melvin Jungle! Come on up!
Come to me when you're afraid. Just call me on the phone. Come to me when you feel naked, babe. I won't leave you alone. Come to me when you need love, and I'll love you back to life. Come to me when you feel lonely. Come to me on a rainy night. You don't leave me alone. You don't hurt me.
Soon, it's the weekend. We'll do brunch.
All right, we are back and we're talking about the Toxic Avenger legacy. So earlier in 2025, there was a new, almost improbable reconstruction of the Toxic Avenger Parts 2 and 3 into one new film, the way it was originally intended. And that was starting to be released to the world. It is called Mr. Melvin. So, Rob, I've never seen Toxic Avenger Part 2 and 3, so I'm curious, how does this compare to Mr. Melvin?
You know, it's good that you haven't watched Toxic Avengers Part 2 and 3 because Toxic Avenger Part 2 and 3 can be rough. They are enjoyable. They're definitely, I didn't feel as enjoyable as the original film. And part of the reason why there's two movies, and I remember this when I talked to Lloyd back when I first met him, actually, in 1998. I have a specific memory of going to the Troma offices to deliver our materials for the film. And Lloyd said to me, he was like, it's too bad you didn't show up 10 years ago because I could have got you guys like, I don't know, $200,000 for this movie, because people are just dying for stuff on VHS. And this was at the height of the video rental boom. And goes, now I can't really give you anything. So, that's just kind of how VHS has gone because my movie was released in the final days of VHS in late 98, early 99. And so he said, part of the reason why there's two Toxic Avenger movies is because we got $250,000 to make a third one. So what Lloyd talked a little bit about in that interview, because I asked him a little bit about this, is he said originally the movie was over 2 hours long. A lot of theaters wanted movies that were shorter so they could get more screenings. And then, of course, you've got this question of VHS. So what it does, I think Mr. Melvin does, is really give you a solid idea of what this film was originally supposed to be. Because when you watch Toxie 2 and Toxie 3, there's a couple of scenes that repeat themselves. There's a boardroom scene that is almost exact in both pieces. It's just like they took that section and said, slap it over here too. The Toxic Avenger Part 2 really focuses on him trying to figure out who his dad is and what he's trying to do with himself, because meet him after the first, this is supposed to be right after the first movie, there's really nothing to do in Tromaville anymore. Everything's been cured. There's no more corruption. There's nothing more to worry about. He's living with his new girlfriend in helping with the Tromaville School for the Blind or Home for the Blind. And life's pretty boring. There's not a lot to really do. And so in Part 2, we meet Apocalypse Inc., which is the horrible corporation that comes to town and wants to exploit Tromaville. So there's some fighting back against Apocalypse, but then he's sidetracked because Apocalypse comes up with this plan and says, the one thing that we've learned by talking to his therapist is that his father has always been this hole in his life. So we're working in Japan on the technology to turn the Toxic Avenger not toxic anymore. We've these anti-tromatons, because the tromatons, he's got this, as explained in the first film, the chemicals have allowed him to sense evil, and he will destroy evil because chemicals or whatever. It's extrasensory perception that he has. So they're like, let's get him out of the country, send him to Japan. So in Part 2, they send him to Japan. And so there's this long extended thing of him going through Japan and meeting people and trying to find his dad. And then he finds out his dad's a drug dealer and then ends up killing his father, but really isn't his dad. And then he returns home. And basically that's kind of the end of it. Apocalypse becomes more and more prevalent. They're trying to work on, again, taking over Tromaville. And the big sort of save the day, sort of the last safe thing that Toxie needs to do is keep the Dark Rider, this motorcycle guy, from crashing into, I think it's the factory or city hall or something like that, and just completely destroying everything in town. So he saves the day on that, and then his dad returns. It's like his real dad. So he meets his real dad, and it's like, oh, everything's fine. Like, I saved the day. I'm the hero. The company isn't as big a deal anymore. And I met my dad, my real dad. And so movie ends. And then Part 3 starts with all the background footage. So we get this, okay, so we got to get you up to speed again. Part 2, and then he went to Japan, and now evil has returned. So it becomes, you have Apocalypse in town, and they're trying to take over Tromaville again. And at the same time, he's still like, it sucks. Like, everything's terrible. I don't know what to do. He's like looking for a job, and he can't find a job. I was looking for a job, and then I found a job, and heaven knows I'm miserable now. But anyway, which is true in this case. So he does find a job, and he makes a deal with someone at Apocalypse, signs a contract to work for Apocalypse to give him enough money so that Claire can get her eye surgery. And so somehow the third part, I feel, kind of negates the second film, because it's almost like he doesn't learn anything. It's like, well, didn't you know Apocalypse was horrible? You just fought them. So why are you going to go work for them? Now you could say, well, I'm going to work for them because I want money to get the eye surgery for my girlfriend, and I'm willing to put up with whatever. But also the community turns on him. They're like, I can't believe you're supporting them. And it becomes just, horrible time. Eventually, what he realizes is, because there's this religious piece that keeps coming up about, the parable of the devil taking Jesus up to the, mountain and saying, I will give you the world if you would just bow down and, worship me. And so that becomes the theme that runs through. And then he realizes who he's actually dealing with. And then there becomes this battle in the end, because Toxie's a video game nerd, where he's got the 5 levels of doom, and each one is more innate, intricate than the next, in terms of like, he has to do a certain thing. This leads to like a chase. This leads to, a bus full of kids he's got to save. It's all of these different things. And eventually, the very last one is he kind of melts down and becomes his nerdy self again. And then his girlfriend, who can now see, reads the contract and realizes, oh, there's this thing about, force of God, that basically God could get involved and change it. And so a message from God comes from an angel, and that destroys everything and reconstitutes Toxie to being Toxie. And Dad doesn't show up in this one. I guess he's already there or whatever, because he was in the second film, but he's never really mentioned again. And then Toxie and Claire get married, and that's the end. So the real issue between the two is that you can see that there was something there, but when you watch them independently, as you watch them as parts 2 and 3, they're okay. But Mr. Melvin, reconstituted together and reconstructed, it's got a much more solid framework, because what it does is it establishes that he's been really upset and life's not really worth living. Apocalypse is doing their thing. They send him out of the country at one point, and there's that piece. But when he comes back, it all makes more sense as to why he goes to work for them. Because in the first part, like the first half before he goes to Japan, you could say, okay, there is some engagement with Apocalypse, but not heavily, like he's just battling goons and stuff. And then you could also say, when he's in Japan and he gets hit with the anti-traumatons, maybe that screws him up a little bit. So he's not really sensing how evil they are. And so it's better. It's a better film, I just think. I think as a sequel to the first, I think Mr. Melvin as an idea is a much better film.
So having not seen 2 and 3 while I was watching Mr. Melvin, I was just like, okay, so what's missing? Because this feels like it's one story. It does not feel choppy whatsoever. It just feels like, okay, yep, we're going from this to this to this. The whole thing in Japan feels like a little bit of a, okay, I don't even know if we really need this part of the film, but it does introduce the stuff about the father and the betrayal by this guy who's pretending to be his father. So I was like, okay, yeah, that kind of works. And yeah, like, because you have Apocalypse at the beginning with the Center for the Blind stuff. And so it's not like they're just kind of introducing them in the the third movie, saying, okay, yeah, we need to add these guys back at the beginning of the second movie or the earlier parts of the film in order to make it make sense. It makes sense as one larger story, though. I mean, kind of like I was talking about with the original Toxic Avenger, didn't really connect for me a lot. There were a lot of times where it's just like, okay, this is going on, even though this is shorter than 2 movies. And as one movie, it's what, about 2 hours long, I guess?
Yeah, it's a few minutes over 2 hours.
Yeah, so I'm just like, all right, this actually could have been trimmed up a little bit more, because there were a few times where I was just like, all right, this is going on for a long time. Like the fight with the goons goes on for quite a while. I kept wondering, there's one guy who's got this like red bandana, and he's like, lucky for you, it's time for my piano lesson, and he leaves the fight. So reminded me of Michael Jai White. I just kept wondering if that was him. I scoured the credits and could not find his name.
You are correct. That is him.
It is him. Okay, great. Oh, God, he's hilarious. Good. And I like how he does the whole like hand under the chin, like waving your fingers thing. That was nice.
It moves better. It's more of a piece in this new edit. And I just feel like, because the thing that was funny was when the 4th Toxic Avenger movie came out, the voiceover on Citizen Toxie was done by Stan Lee. And Stan Lee, like, to get you up to speed, they do the whole, there was this, and then this happened, and then it's like, and then there were 2 sequels. We don't worry about that. This is the real sequel, like Stan Lee even says that version. And this movie, I think, stands by itself as a good sequel. Like, I never really went back to rewatch them. I believe, and I forgot to ask Lloyd this, but I believe that the reason why the Japanese sequences happened is because there was Japanese production money. And
thus Sergeant Kabuki Man.
Right. So this is in that era where, because Kabuki Man, I think, is like 2 years later. I think it's like 90, 91, 92. So there was Japanese production money, and I'm not Japanese, but from what Lloyd said, and if you go through the credits actually, and you click on some of the Japanese, like if you go on IMDb, click on some of the Japanese actors, some of them have been in some notable movies. So like these were notable people in Japan. And so I guess in this period, Lloyd was just sort of like, yeah, like fine, like if we can be big in Japan, why not? Like, let's go be big in Japan.
Well, didn't he say something like he was promised that everyone there spoke English or all the actors were bilingual? And then when he gets there, nobody's bilingual?
That may be true. I don't know.
Or very limited, because there are sequences that are just 100% in Japanese. Like no attempt at, we're going to, and I'm glad that they don't do the whole speaky English kind of thing very much. Like it's Troma, trucks, and bad taste, which I can really get behind a lot of times. But then when it comes to certain things, you're just like, oh, this is kind of insensitive. Like it goes from bad taste into really bad taste where you're like, I really shouldn't be participating in this. I shouldn't be laughing at this.
I mean, they do some subtitles in certain sequences. The one who doesn't have subtitles is there's a girl that he meets there, and she kind of shows him around and, helps him investigate like where his dad is. And she's voiced over. And then also the father character who's supposed to be his dad, he's voiced over. I think they were both voiced over by people in the Troma office. I think actually the big boss is voiced over by Michael Herz, and I believe the love interest is voiced over by Pat, which is Lloyd's wife, because she kind of sounds a little like Pat. But trying to do a kind of, I have a Japanese accent kind of.
Right.
So.
Yeah, again, just riding that line of, is this offensive? I'm not sure, but I wasn't offended by that part, at least. I thought that she was pretty nice. And some of the things that they do in the Japanese sequence, I especially like the fish cakes that Toxie eats, and using the fish cake maker to grab the guy's nose is pretty great. The one thing that 2 and 3 were kind of missing for me was the idea of the Toxic Avenger himself having a voiceover. Like in the very first movie, there's an intro to the film, and you have a guy who's like obviously very much a professional voiceover person. And then once Melvin transforms into Toxie, they keep that voice. That voice comes out of him now. So it's no longer the me kind of Melvin voice that they have. It's this, well, what do you mean? And just this kind of booming voice, to the point where when I was rewatching it the other night, I was like, does everybody else hear this voice, or is this just what he's saying and it comes out as growls to everybody else? And then finally, when he interacts with his girlfriend, I was like, oh, okay, this is the voice. Like, everybody hears this voice. But then we get into these movies and it feels very much more like this is the actor. They've made the mask different so that he could actually speak his lines and you could understand him. And it might be somebody else doing a voiceover, but it really feels much more organic to the character, even though they add in the growls a lot, even when he's just sitting there, eating his breakfast covered in Drano. And it's like, all right, that kind of takes away a little bit of the joke for me, because I like that it's this very much more, deep voice coming out of this creature's mouth rather than what sounds like just a dude, and he's a nice dude. And I thought that he did a good job with the acting and everything. I just was like, well, that kind of kicks it up to be this level of absurdity that's even more intense.
Yeah, the like, if you had the professional voice, that would be a bit more, it would add more absurdity. There's this balance in Mr. Melvin or Toxic Avenger 2 and 3 in that I can kind of see what Lloyd was trying to do, and Michael, because Michael was still directing with Lloyd at that time, where they were trying to broaden the base a little bit. They were trying to put the over the top and the weirdness in there, but they were still trying to make it like sweet enough for families or something. They were trying to make it where, you can have, a little nudity and a little violence, but still it's cartoony enough that, that's where the humor comes from, is in the cartooniness or the puns, as opposed to absurdist, aspects where it's just like, that is definitely not that guy's voice kind of thing.
Which I thought was nice that they did with the remake and having Peter Dinklage's voice come out of that lady's mouth. But at the same time, she does such a good job with the lip syncing, or he does a good job, going back and doing the ADR for it, that I was like, oh, it actually kind of looks like, there has been question, is that Dinklage in the makeup? And it's like, no, it's not. But the voice matches so well that you could be fooled by it.
The thing in here also that I really love about Mr. Melvin, and it's kind of in the sequels, but I feel it's much more pronounced in here because everything flows in a better way, is the whole sort of horrible, stereotypical wearing a polo with the popped collar, yuppie piece, which you're a little bit older than me. When this movie came out, it was 89 originally, so I was like 11. So I had some idea of the culture. You're a little bit older than me, but you probably would have more on this, where it's almost like that kind of Wall Street businessman yuppie slang stuff.
Yeah, I like that in the beginning of the second movie, he's walking through the junkyard, his home, and walking over all of these books that were discarded. And there's one that's Reagan economics, basically. And then he comes across a Mad magazine, and that one, it's like, oh, bends down, wipes it off with the mop. It's like, okay, this is the good stuff. Meanwhile, Reagan's in the dump and just collecting dirt.
Well, in the first film, I think there's a Richard Nixon book that he wrote that's in the dump in the 84 film. So, where there's a similar thing.
I like that when Toxie has sex, he never takes his pants off. I just want to put that out there.
Well, it's the tutu. It's easy access, I guess. I don't know.
And that was nice how they reworked the tutu in the remake as well, that it was this, all the family is in tutus in that picture that's right by Dinklage's bed, on the nightstand. And then he's like trying to cheer his son up after the failed performance movement, and puts on the tutu and starts dancing around and stuff. I was like, oh, that's really nice. The way that they get him into the tutu, as opposed to, hey, Melvin, put this on. This really turns me on. Okay, I will. And what happened to Mark Torgel? Why is he not back when Toxic gets transformed back into Torgel?
According to the book, I remember reading Lloyd's book many years ago. Everything I learned about filmmaking, I learned from the Toxic Avenger. Everything I know about filmmaking, I learned from the Toxic Avenger. He mentioned that Torgel wanted more money than he was willing to give him. So Lloyd said, forget it. I'll just get someone else to do it. So that was just Lloyd being cheap. And even he admitted, like, yeah, I probably should have done that. Like, it was cheap of me and would have been nice to have him, but Just
Yeah, I figured it had to be money. If Troma's known for one thing, it's cost cutting.
there's a couple of things in here that from the first movie, like names change, characters, so he goes from Melvin Ferd to Melvin Junko, and then you have Claire, well, in the first film, you have Sarah. And I don't want to ruin it for anyone because it's a good reveal in the interview that we have coming up. This will be explained. Name change won't be explained. But why is it Claire and what happened to Sarah? And in Claire and Sarah the same? You're going to have to listen to the interview to find out on that one. One of the things that's interesting now that we have a long enough timeline of Lloyd's movies, and this, goes back to 84, but extends at least until 1999, is him bringing up blindness in the context of his movies. And then it kind of culminates in Terror Firmer, which we did an episode on, where he plays a blind film director. So again, this is one of those kind of thematic pieces that keep coming up. Like within the context of Terror Firmer, I mean, it makes sense. He's kind of making fun of himself and he's making fun of critics who probably have, written something like, these movies are terrible. What is this guy, like blind? Like, so it makes sense in there. It would be interesting. I mean, I know one thing about him. He, in his early years, I think when he was in college or something, he had thought about going into social work, and he talked about like how he thought that, he would be working with people who had handicaps or things like that. I think that's part of it, is that he has this thing with, at times it feels like it veers from laughing with to laughing at. It kind of rides the line, and sometimes I don't necessarily know if I should be laughing at some of the humor that's at the expense of certain people. But I also have to realize when this was made, that's another thing.
When they're at the home for the blind at the beginning of the second one, or near the beginning of Mr. Melvin, and they've got like, rooftop tours, and you can see the guy just pretty much walking right towards the edge of a roof. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Or like the basketball with all of the blind people playing basketball and just kind of who even has the ball type of thing. Yeah. I was like, okay, this is funny, but at the same time, yeah, because it's like, I mean, right now, like I work with a blind person, and it's always like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Let's figure out like what is an activity that all of us can do that you can participate in. And somebody brought up bowling, and I was like, well, are you joking or not? Because I actually know of a blind bowling league around here. So like, that's legit, like, don't think that you saying bowling is a joke, or I hope you're not joking around, because yeah, that sensitivity is something that I'm like constantly every single day. Like, did I say that the right way? Like, how many times do we use phrases like, I'll see you later? And it's like, oh yeah, that I probably shouldn't be saying that to this person.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I guess we don't think about. I mean, I remember many years ago someone saying to me, it's like, everyone should be for disability rights, because at some point we're probably going to need it. As you get older, as things, get more difficult to do, at minimum, you're going to deal with aging, and aging, can diminish your capacity to handle things. So, but anyway, when we're talking about Claire in here and the eyes, I also really love her pushback where she's like, yeah, I got the surgery and I can see now, but I would rather live in a good Tromaville with good people and be blind than to, live under what we're living under now. This is fucking terrible. So I like that there's this willingness part of the story to say, being blind isn't the worst thing. It isn't some sort of curse. It isn't this bad thing. And that, how you get things matter as much as what you get. That just because you can get things fixed, or you can get money or whatever, within the context of the yuppie 80s in which this movie was made, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe that isn't good for the soul.
What I do really appreciate that when she gets her eyesight back and the doctor's hovering over her, this doctor who I guess you consider traditionally handsome, blue-eyed, blonde kind of guy, And she's just like, ew. And then it's like, when she sees Toxie, she's like, oh yeah, here's my man. I was like, that's great. I was so afraid that this was going to veer into Toxie loses his girlfriend once she has her eyesight. And I was glad that she is just as in love with him as she was before, if not more.
The other thing that I thought about in here with the contract and obviously the whole, signing a deal with the devil, Faustian bargain kind of thing is the other, like, I don't know why this didn't occur to me earlier, because I always thought of Toxie kind of lives in that, and Lloyd has talked about this too. And like we talked about Stan Lee, that, when Lloyd was in college was when Marvel really took off in the early 60s. And he talked about the influence of the Marvel characters, and it's like they get mutated and then they have to deal with the mutation while still trying to be human. And really there is that within Toxie as a character. But the other thing that I was thinking about, and I think this is kind of part of it, maybe this comes from both of them. I mean, both Stan Lee and Lloyd come from, Jewish background, is this is really the first time, like, watching all these movies kind of back to back to back, really got me to think about the idea of the golem. And, the Frankenstein story, the Mary Shelley story is kind of based, in the golem, which is a Jewish folktale from Europe. Probably the most famous one is the Golem of Prague, in which a rabbi creates this man out of clay and uses him to save the ghetto. So from the pogroms and being oppressed by the larger power structure. So I was thinking about, although my conversations with Lloyd or anywhere that I've ever read Lloyd talk about the inspiration for Toxie's never brought up the golem, it wouldn't surprise me if it's kind of like in the background in some way, because the golem, or Toxie in this case, in both of these stories, all of these stories, I would say, is about using this superhero character to protect the interest of the little people who are oppressed. And really it is this character who works at the behest of the oppressed to a certain extent. That it's not really about them, about the larger community in which they live.
Yeah, and the whole influence of Marvel, like you were saying, I mean, the Thing with his blind girlfriend, Alicia, I mean, that is so influential on something like this as well, where it's like, oh yeah, only a blind person, which I know kind of also goes back to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with the blind character in there, but it's like, this is the only person that's going to love you and appreciate you as somebody that's blind. And I'm glad that they turned that on its head when she regains her sight.
Where are you going? I was going to make espresso.
Mr. Melvin is, whenever you're listening to this, maybe out in some form. It's getting the rounds on festivals, little screenings here and there. We'll see if it goes broader than that, if we end up getting a Blu-ray and all the fanciness. So would be nice, but then again, they may have to go back and retitle all their Toxic Avenger sequels. But anyway.
Well, they are doing 0.5 versions now, so maybe this could be Toxic Avenger 2.5 or something like that. Yeah. We're going to take another break and play an interview with Andrew L. Miller, Lloyd's assistant at Troma, and also the co-producer and co-editor of this new reconstruction, Mr. Melvin. And you'll hear that right after these brief messages.
Hello, everyone. This is Malcolm McDowell. I just want to say that this is a request to listeners of the Projection Booth podcast to become patrons of the show via patreon.com, patreon.com/projection booth. That's pretty simple. I think you can do that. It's a great show, and Mike, he provides hours of great entertainment. So now it's time to give back, my little droogies. Settle down and take a listen and have a sip of the old Moloko. And then you'll be ready for a little of the old in-out, real horror show. Bye-bye.
My name is Andrew L. Miller. Gotta throw the L in there so we don't get confused with the guy from The Cube. Great movie. But I am Lloyd Kaufman's assistant and producer at Troma. I was a producer on Mr. Melvin and one of the editors, the other half of which is Adam Peltier, who is the star of Lloyd's most recent feature, The Power of Positive Murder.
Tell me how this came to be. I mean, I know 2 and 3, they always felt a little odd and disjointed, like there was something going on there. But, tell me how this came to be this, I guess, the original concept?
Well, I don't remember where we heard it first, but, it was a fact that they shot Toxic Avenger Part II originally as one film. That was always the original intent, for it to be one film. But somehow in post, they decided to split it up into 2, and not just like in the Kill Bill sense, where it's like sort of right down the middle. They sort of created 2 totally different plots out of this one thing. And so you'll see in Mr. Melvin, like, even it's not cut straight down the middle. Like in the beginning, you'll go from 2 to 3, back to 2, back to 3. So they did some serious chopping. And what I think happened was this was the start of the video store era, blowing up. And so they would have all of these deals with different distribution companies for, we'll give you 3 movies to put it out in the stores. And I know the producer of Mr. Melvin, Lloyd's calling me right now. I'll call him back. But Jeff Sass, who's the producer of Mr. Melvin, or then it was just the Toxic Avenger Part II, he's also the co-writer for Sergeant Kabuki Man and NYPD. Met him in Fort Lauderdale. He was telling me about the movie Fortress of America. And that was one that Troma distributed. And he had written the original script for Fortress of America, which ended up being a totally different film than what they put out. What they put out, I can't remember the original title, but they essentially had sold Fortress of America, didn't make it, bought another movie, stacked that title onto it, and put it out there. So there were some of those sort of business techniques, just to meet that quota, I guess. So I suspect that that's what happened. They were like, well, we can fit more into these deals if we had 2 Toxic Avenger movies than 1. So that's my sneaky suspicion. But yeah.
That probably tracks, because I remember, and I think I may have told you this when I came to visit, that when I showed up with Tainted in '98, Lloyd said, if you would have showed up 10 years ago, I could have got you guys about $150,000, $200,000 for this on video. He goes, that's why we have 2 Toxic Avenger sequels. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they were just throwing money at everybody back then, it seems like. What a time. And now we have no idea how movies make money. But somehow studios are getting bought by other studios for hundreds of billions of dollars. And it's like, where did that come from?
Yeah. So how did you start this idea that, okay, we're going to reconstitute this as the original vision?
Well, really more of a drunken idea than anything. But Adam and I were talking about it at a bar, and I think maybe that was the first time we brought up, I bet that script is like in the basement somewhere. There's just crap everywhere. And one night we were at the office, we were having like a movie night, which we did from time to time. And we were watching 2 and 3 back to back, and we had been having a few drinks, and we were just like, should we go look? So we went down in the basement, and there's lots of those filing cabinets where you can, pull and go through scripts. Sometimes, you stumble upon people's social security numbers and information, all that stuff, all the old receipts and everything. And we were going through all the scripts, and we couldn't find anything. There were Toxic Avenger scripts, but not for Part 2 and 3. But we ended up going through these boxes that were meant to be shipped out to Lloyd's archive like forever ago. And Adam went through one box and he pulled out this script and he said, "This is Mr. Melvin." Like, I don't know what the hell that is. And then, I think he's like, maybe this is it. And I started looking through it and it had Japan and the devil. And I was like, well, this has got to be it. Lloyd's calling me again now. And we found that one, but we also found a Japanese one, which was titled just The Toxic Avenger Part II. And I assume the Mr. Melvin script was, I've been telling people it was the code name, like whenever they were shooting, in the town, they would have to put notices up. So Mr. Melvin was most likely the code name for it. Like here, Daredevil they'll put up for out of the kitchen and put some hip hop letters on it. But yeah, the Japanese script was just Toxic Avenger Part II, and we still have that one somewhere. So we found the script and just started going through it. There was some stuff in there that we had never seen before. I don't know if they shot or not. Like, for instance, the reason why Toxie's girlfriend in the first one is Sarah, and then 2 and 3 is Claire, because Sarah walked into a plane propeller at an airport. She was just blindly walking, and she was at the airport and walked into a plane propeller and died. And that's also why Toxie's first started going to therapy, is to deal with her death. And yeah, he just found another blind chick to get with. So we discovered stuff like that in there. But you could see that, yeah, like all of this stuff was supposed to be happening at once, like him looking for a job and the whole blowing up of the Center for the Blind and him going to Japan. Like all of that was all happening in conjunction with one another. So it was really interesting. And we took like a 720 version so we didn't have to use that many files and it wouldn't take so long, just to like chop it up and see if we could put everything in the right spot and if it would possibly make sense. And we made a pretty good version with it. And then, like what the flow would be like with Adam and I, Adam just kind of had the script and just threw the chunks in, like where they went. And then I would come in, and there were some creative choices that did have to be made, but I would just trim everything down and get us in and out of things quicker, and tried to make, because we're dealing with a straight AV cut. We didn't have the original materials. So the music was an issue a lot of the time. So I would literally be editing on a beat, cut, and have to stitch those things together. But I don't know. I think it's pretty seamless. A lot of things are faster. I did even more of that with the 720 cut, to where I think it does become a bit noticeable with the music because of how much I was trying to make everything super quick. But then when we went to the 4K cut, Adam took that as a reference and put it back, and we kept finagling some things. One of my favorite choices that I made was about the first sex scene with Toxie and Claire. I just cut that out completely. And it takes place in part 2 whenever Claire says, "Toxie, this will be our last day together for a while. What should we do?" And then it goes into a sex scene. In this version, it's building up. It's like, oh, what should we do? Our last day for a while. And the romantic music. And then it just hard cuts to them playing video games at the arcade, just to show that he's kind of a nerdy kid. And it doesn't imply that they're not having sex, but it doesn't confirm that either. So that in the next scene is the nightmare sequence when Melvin in the mirror is like, "I bet you can't even get it up. Let me bonk Claire. Let me bonk Claire." So that kind of it kind of makes sense, because he can't have that after he just had sex. It's like, "Oh, what are you talking about? Fucking idiot. We just watched this guy." But in the original script, this is funny. There is a sex scene there, but there's this other subplot about Toxie having erectile dysfunction. So I mean, that's totally lost without. I mean, if you had both of those, it just doesn't make sense. So I felt like I wanted to try to lean into that subplot that wasn't really there, just because it connects. First of all, it connects. It creates a laugh because it's like, oh, he's a nerd, and it connects to the end. Whenever they have the 5 levels of doom at the end, because I don't know where else we would put that. And you can tell in that shot that was like an afterthought, even because it's a totally different actress playing Claire. So it connects that, and it doesn't again confirm that he has erectile dysfunction, but it kind of helps that sort of underlying plot that was never really explored. So yeah, that was one of the fun choices I had to make. And yeah, Adam was really adamant about the dad not coming back, which is in the script. It's just when you put it in there, it sort of takes away a little bit of what he learned through his journey, because he never really needed his dad. He had everyone he needed right there all along. And also, if you have the dad in, we have to keep the wedding thing, because the wedding's awesome, and that's got to be the ending, because you got that great freeze frame with the heart. You know, they all go off into that toxic sunset, but the dad isn't at the wedding. So he just left again. You know, he shows up. It's like, what? I don't know. So yeah, Adam was like, we don't even need him. He never needed his dad. And it hits harder that he actually killed his father in Japan. Another thing, though, about the father scene is that, you know, like I said, it's in the original script. So they shot that to be in the movie. And at this time in the original movie, Claire can see. And in part 2, at the end of part 2, she's still blind. But they still have that scene in there where you can tell that she's looking directly at people. She's obviously has her vision back. So that's another little fun bit. Another one of my favorite things that I don't think anyone would have ever noticed if these scenes weren't put in their proper order. Whenever Malfair and the bad girls go and attack Claire and Toxie comes in and saves the day, Claire knees Malfair in the crotch. She's like, oh, and walking out, like stumbling. I can't remember what it cuts to originally in part 2, but when you put it in the next order, the proper order, the next scene is the bad girls walking up the stairs, and this is in part 3, walking up the stairs in at Apocalypse Inc. to talk to the chairman, and Malfair is like, you're gonna have to get your own Toxic Avenger on the payroll, boss. And then you can see she has a cast now around her crotch and is like holding it still. And those are in 2 totally different movies. There's no context in 3 as to why she's doing that. And I just think nobody ever noticed because it's Tromaville and people are weird. So that was fun. Yeah, just kind of discovering those little things. And just looking at it from now, it's like, gosh, there's just so many explosions and special effects. And even Adam is like, I'm surprised no one died when you see some of these car chases and, you know, people just rolling out of the way. And so for us, it was like we saw that it was a better movie, so we felt responsible to, you know, release the Kraken.
It really is interesting because over the past week, I've watched 2, 3, and then I watched Mr. Melvin, and I was taking notes and just sort of the placement of things. So, like where like the Black Rider appears, you know, is moved to the beginning of 2. Yeah. There's also the thing, like when I watched 3, I'm like, he already knows too much about Apocalypse in part 2 to then go work for them. In your cut, it's like you can kind of have some plausible thing where it's like, okay, maybe he'll go work there, you know. Mm-hmm. But when you watch it as it was originally, you know, 2 and 3 as 2 separate parts, it's like, didn't he learn anything in the first film?
Yeah. There's also another subplot that is explained more in the script, and I don't know how we could have emphasized it anymore, but the Tromatons, that they're very important. the whole reason he goes to Japan is because Apocalypse Inc. is trying to poison him with Tromatons. They have no idea what's going to happen, and he just sort of got nicked by them, really, around the halfway point. But what it does, because even after he gets home, he's like, these chemicals are killing me. It's like he's breaking down. So the anti-Tromatons worked. They affected him. I mean, these sumo guys, they're not going to know. They just, brought him back to regular health. They didn't stop whatever the anti-Tromatons were doing. But the regular Tromatons, as we know, they help him sense evil. And so since the anti-Tromatons are working, he can no longer sense evil. And so that's why he just doesn't get it when he starts working for Apocalypse that everyone's evil, because he doesn't have the Tromatons anymore. So, but it's just not quite as emphasized as I wish it was. It could have been.
But at the same time, I also think the way that it's cut, and you were talking about the mirror scene and stuff like that, where and it's very emphasized that it's like, oh, I'm useless and like I can't do anything anymore, and he's just feeling very down on himself, and he's like, well, at least there's one thing I can do, and if I have to go do this to get her eye surgery, then great, I'll do it. Yeah. So, but then it's like he gets sucked into the yuppie vortex, which, as a Gen Xer who's this movie, when it was originally released in 2 parts, I was like 10 or 11. So, but I do remember sort of the yuppie 80s kind of aesthetic. So it's really interesting to have that play out, I think, in a better way in your edit, and to really kind of go, he's been taken over by this not quite Patrick Bateman-esque way of being.
He's pre-Bateman, but that Wall Street era, Charlie Sheen, kind of definitely those vibes. Yeah, and we try to lean into that a little bit in the initial marketing. The poster that we had Dean work on was sort of inspired by initially Risky Business. So we were kind of going for like this whole 80s like cool, Ray-Bans with the flipped up collar kind of look, just for that, like, I don't know, what is it, 10 minutes maybe of the movie. Yeah, he's windsurfing. I don't know, it's a very vibey film for sure.
That was the thing that I was sharing with a friend of mine about it is, it's does he sell out? Does he sell out the community, kind of thing, and become the horrible yuppie that as far back as I remember, like I said, when I first met Lloyd in the late 90s, he was talking about devil worshipping conglomerates that, own everything. So, yeah,
the tagline, Adam, well, he just he pitched it at first, but I really liked it and we stuck with it, was the fighting crime doesn't pay, selling out does. We've put that at the heart of it, especially in the marketing. But he's lost. He doesn't know what to do. He's going off to Japan because he's being told that would solve all of his problems, and he comes back and he's got even more issues now, and the only way out is through selling out, and that leads him to go on this journey. And I think in the end he discovers like he doesn't need to have bad guys to fight all the time. He just needs his family and Tromaville, and he kind of comes to terms a bit. I feel like that's where we get at the end. He comes to terms with himself. Yeah, because there's no voiceover at the beginning, like in 2 and 3. Where it's like the first 15 minutes is just him talking about all the stuff. But we think it's still kind of implied enough that he is also depressed because there's no more crime to fight in Tromaville, and he doesn't, know his place in the world. And then, at the end, he realizes he doesn't have to sell his soul to find happiness and be happy with everybody. And everyone's happy with him just the way he is. He doesn't need to change.
How long did it take you to put this together?
Probably like 3 months. maybe 2. Yeah, so it didn't seem like that long. I mean, we put a lot of hours into it. Yeah, I don't know. It feels kind of like a blur. Like we would stay, we would come to the office. Oops, we go to the office and stay super late. We'd go in on the weekends. Sometimes Adam would take it home, just little things on his laptop. Yeah, we just kind of lived at the office for a little bit, basically. We didn't sleep there. I didn't sleep there until months later, but it's in the same time. It doesn't feel like it was that long, but I don't know. Because I'm working on Power Up Positive Murder. It's been over a year and we're still in post. But there's a lot more things that go into that. I mean, we had very clear vision for it. I mean, 2 movies were already made, and all we were doing is just, the script was our guiding light. So, there were some creative decisions that were made, but we didn't have to make too many of them. We didn't have to try to rewrite the movie or anything. Yeah, if anything, the creative decisions were just trying to emphasize the more important parts of the script.
When you were going through the edit, did you ever show it to Lloyd, or what was his take when you told him you were going to start doing this project?
No, when I first told him, he was like, well, great. Cool, great. And then when I first told it to Michael said, who would want to see that? And I kept wanting to show Lloyd stuff. And he's like, no. Just show me when you're done. And the first time he watched it actually was at Tromathon. And that wasn't necessarily the best setting because they are more geared for 35 millimeter, and we had a Blu-ray, and something about their projector just made it look a little, I don't know, like just the colors were a little off. And being at the drive-in, he's out there sitting with Pat, and people are just walking up to him, both of them just talking to them during the fucking thing, and he can't pay attention. And he wasn't sure how he felt about it. Pat loved it when she saw it, but he wasn't sure how he felt about it until he saw it in Fort Lauderdale in a packed theater with Jeff Sass, and nobody bothering him then. And he gets to hear the audience reactions, which there were many, and that it's a fun movie, and people have fun in the theater. I think especially movies like this, the more the merrier. And Jeff Sass loved it, and that was great. Yeah, he seemed very proud, so that made me happy. That's kind of been like, whenever Adam and I started doing this, we weren't thinking that we were going to be like traveling around everywhere and doing all these screenings, and I don't know what we were thinking. And besides, this has to exist. But I found that my favorite part of all of it has been showing these people who worked on this movie what they were doing, what they were actually making that whole time. And at the New York City premiere at the Museum of the Moving Image, Phoebe Leger showed up, and she has not been involved with Troma in any capacity, and probably since then. They had a bit of a falling out for multiple reasons, but it was really cool to meet her, and she got to speak on stage right before the movie. Before she even saw it, she was talking about how she got her start through Troma. And I don't know, she's a professional for sure. But after she saw the movie, she came up to me and said, "It's a masterpiece." And she made this big long Facebook post about how it made her like reflect on her life and all the stuff that she's done and went through. And she was like, yeah, it's one of those moments that make you stop and say that was a life worth living. And I was like, that is such a cool fucking thing to give someone. And I was really, really super proud of that. And it feels way bigger than we anticipated, not just in making money, but like in, affecting people's lives. Yeah, that's my favorite part of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, just as being the film dork that I am, whenever there's an opportunity to see as close to an original vision that somebody wanted to make, as opposed to, the compromises that were made for commerce.
Yeah,
that is always a more interesting thing, for me. And I think it's great, as you were saying, that there's been this ability to have the producers and the actors reconnect with the movie, because I'm sure when it finally came out, they're like, this isn't what we originally thought we were making. Believe me, it was much better. And also, as a fan and as someone who's been around Troma as long as I have, it always felt like 2 and 3 were just sort of, and then it was Citizen Toxie was the real sequel. As a matter of fact, I think that's what is on the beginning of the opening of Citizen Toxie. Yeah.
Stan Lee's, oh gosh, I wish we could get him to redo that now.
Yeah. But it's, so for me to see this version and go, wow, like that's what that was. That it was a bit of a revelation, and I was like, this is so much better than the 2 films by themselves.
Yeah, no, it's the biggest budget film that they had made at that time. I think Kabuki Man might have beat it out, but so many explosions. It was a real movie. It was a big, huge movie, and I think it was important to a lot of people at that time. And yeah, I mean, it was Troma's Mickey Mouse, the Toxic Avenger. And like Lisa Gay, we went to New Orleans. I had such a great time with her, and it's cool. It was cool because she said she had never been to New Orleans except for her son's chess tournament when he was younger years ago. And so she actually got to enjoy the city. And we're doing this big Alabama thing too, where we got Rick Collins and Ron Fazio is coming out too, and Lisa Gay, and trying to get Adam out there. I'm going to be there, Lloyd, just so people can, get to experience it. And I think that Citizen Toxie was my favorite out of all of them. I mean, the first one's a classic, but I loved the insanity of Citizen Toxie. But now I think that Mr. Melvin is obviously a better movie, especially in 4K.
I was talking to Lloyd about it, and I said, is this going to come out? What are you guys going to do with it? And he's like, well, we're still touring it around, stuff like that. And knowing him as long as I have, it always seemed that he had a camera with him. He's always taping interviews and stuff for extras. And I was wondering, since you've reconnected with all these folks who were in it, is there any possibility of that being extras or having commentaries or things like that? Do you have any idea if that's going to come together?
No, that's a good idea. Damn it. Yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot of things I wish I would have thought out more with all of this. Like, I had never submitted it to any festivals. I never reached out to any theaters except Momi. Like, I really have not pushed for this except for whenever we were trying to take it to Tromathon. And then everything else just sort of came with that. Like, the Popcorn Frights Fest people reached out to us. They flew both of us down, and that was in Fort Lauderdale. And then I don't know, every screening, pretty much every single screening we've had has just been people reaching out, and I feel like it's gotten away from me a little bit, and I just I never had a plan for it. And so thinking about special features probably should be probably on that list, especially with all these cool stories I'm telling you about. Like, wouldn't it be great if we actually had a video of fucking Phoebe Legere saying all this cool stuff? That'd be great. But I know that Adam and I, we always wanted the first physical release to be on VHS. So not too many special features on that, but it's like, this is how it would have come out originally, on VHS first. So, and then that was also the idea behind the drive-in, because in our mind, like, this would have been a drive-in movie back in the day. But maybe not. I don't know. 2 hours and 6 minutes is probably pretty long for a drive-in movie, but it felt right. And so does VHS. It feels right to have that. But yeah, no, probably should get on top of recording this stuff. But Should have put more thought into all of it.
Well, it's not too late. People aren't dead yet. So that's
true. Yeah.
I just look at it and go, we're coming up on 30, almost 40 years,
Yeah.
30, 35 years since it came out and in the original cut forms. And so for me, as someone who was collecting oral histories of Detroit area punk rockers from the 70s, it's like some don't exist anymore,
Yeah.
and some of the old folks, it's like you can talk to them and you can get them. I'm just always thinking about, how do we serve the future by making sure people understand you stand on the shoulders of great things. And to me, I always felt that Troma is one of those great things. I mean, one of the last bastions of truly independent people doing crazy work and beautiful, beautiful things.
Yeah, there really is nothing else like it. In a way, you work with Troma and you look at everything as very old school, and it is very old school. It's like the oldest school that you can get as far as filmmaking goes, just and like business in general, I think, which is great. Like you said, standing on the shoulder of giants. But yeah, nobody does anything like Troma. Like the new Toxic Avenger movie that is now owned by Cineverse. That company is 100% totally remote. Everyone from the bottom to the top is totally remote. I think they might have like an office in LA, but it's not, the majority of its employees are totally remote. And the thing about like Troma is there's different worlds, but the office is very much one of those worlds. The other worlds would be like conventions. Like that's a whole world, like people who just live in those things. And their Troma is the booth, and like, yeah, everyone loves the movies, but like that's their Troma world is the booth and like Lloyd coming and like partying and, wearing costumes, cosplay, and then just slinging T-shirts and Blu-rays. And then the other world besides the office is the film people, like people who are actually on these sets. And Troma uses a lot of the same people. Everyone really does, but we have the same, almost pretty similar crew on Power Positive Murder that they had on Shakestorm, which was like 7 years, or it's like 6 or 7 years before they shot that. So, and a lot of those people, they get more experience and they grow. And I guess eventually people grow enough to get the hell away from Troma. But a lot of people stick around. But I would say there is a fourth world. That's where I came from. It was just a fan that had no idea about any of this like subculture aspect to it. Like it's a fucking, like, in the nicest way, it's a cult for sure. And like the Grateful Dead, they're like a cult for sure. And I identify with that one too. I do like these sort of American tribes. Troma is definitely a tribe. So that appeals to me, having these sort of communities. As dysfunctional as this one is, it's, I guess your vibe attracts your tribe. So we're all a little wacky.
I think that Lloyd said once to me, yes, Troma is an institution, a mental institution, but an institution nonetheless.
Yeah. And it's really strange, like the diversity, because I mean, especially Lloyd's movies sometimes can be so offensive. I mean, there were tons of movies that are super hyper offensive, like intentionally. But still, like, there's such a diverse amount of people who are fans and come from all sorts of different backgrounds and all sorts of mental capacities. And, so I don't know. There's something to it. I remember when I was on the set of Power Positive Murder, I was taking a piss. And during this piss, I reflected on Troma. And it's like, wow, Troma really attracts some of the smartest people And then before that stream ended, I was like, we also attract some of the biggest fucking idiots in the world. And so it's all about balance.
It's funny that you say that about the balance, because when I first met him, he would always talk about the Tao and the balance, the yin and the yang, and the balance of things, and this Eastern thing, because I think he has like a Chinese studies degree or something like that.
His degree at Yale was in Chinese studies. Yeah.
So
and then he went to Africa.
It's that I think that, like you were saying, like, God, this stuff is offensive. I can't believe we get the range of people who are interested in it. And I think because at the core of it, it's always about like it kind of reminds me a little bit of like water stuff, where it's always the rejects, it's always the put upon, it's always the people who are the left behinds. They're the heroes. They're the ones who get to find community and do good things. It's never mean towards those people. It's never mean towards the outcasts. It's like, no, we love the outcasts. Like, that's what, like I say, Toxie is Troma's Mickey Mouse. I mean, he represents the outcast. And so everybody rallies around the outcast.
Yeah. And as far as Troma in general goes, I think, I think it's been in some of his other movies, but there's a quote we have in The Power of Positive Murder that lost causes are the only ones worth fighting for. And there's a sense of that too, to try to do the impossible. But with the genre that I guess we've made a lot of, like, you think of a lot of it as horror, quote unquote, but none of it's particular. Well, again, I guess I'm mostly focusing on Lloyd stuff, but a lot of the other ones we have, none of them are really particularly scary. There might be lots of blood and gore, a lot of like gross out stuff, a lot of sex, which I think sex and death kind of, sex is like the pinnacle of life and death is like the exact opposite. Sex is the creation of it, death is the end of it. So there is that yin and yang there too. But with horror, or the genre we have, it's horror, it's like what we fear, but we're laughing at our fear. So there's also that sort of yin and yang thing going. So yeah, there's a sort of spiritual path, I guess, with Troma.
Is there anything else you want to add about Mr. Melvin, or I forgot to ask you about?
No, I just I'm just kind of happy. I'm happy with people liking it. I'm glad people like it. Not everyone loves it. I've seen the letterbox reviews, but some people watch it having no idea about even the first one, I guess, because maybe the title, I don't know. But if it's not your genre, schlock and all that, if that's not for you, then the movie probably was not going to speak to you a whole lot. But yeah, it's funny. Like, I think if you liked 2 and 3, you'll probably appreciate this one at the very least.
All right, we are back. And yeah, Rob, any final thoughts on the Toxic Avenger, new one, Mr. Melvin, or just the Troma in general, sir?
As you know, Troma's still doing their thing, trying to do their thing. It gets harder and harder every year. Physical media ain't the giggle it used to be, and getting into theaters pretty much non-existent, except for little bookings here and there. But it's good to know, you as a film noir fan, that Lloyd is finishing up The Power of Positive Murder, which is his black and white nod to film noir. So hopefully sometime in the next few years, that'll be out.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm just so glad that they're still doing their thing.
Yeah, and it's difficult, as Lloyd said in the interview. So if you haven't had a chance to check out Troma now, go over there and check out their streaming service. It's pretty cool. You can get a first month free. There's some good stuff. There's some Russ Meyer movies on there. I was watching Motorcycle and stuff like that. So they got some interesting stuff over there. It's not all just Lloyd's movies, and it's not all just Troma movies. And if you really want to watch my horrible little, low budget film, you can watch that too. So it's great. There's a good little mix of stuff over there at Troma now. And if you need Troma DVDs or whatever, you can always get those through the link as well. So.
Rob, you're so self-deprecating that you don't even ever say the name of your movie, which is Tainted. People should definitely check out Tainted, which is not just a little movie. It's actually very entertaining.
Thank you, sir. I know it did okay. I always joke about it. It's my delinquent child. So I'm proud of it. And I'm also concerned for it too. But also I have to remember, I was 19 when I made that thing. So don't judge me too harshly,
And now you're what, 25?
Yeah. I'm about 25.
Looking good.
Where did all the years go? But, just thinking about the Toxic Avenger and the stories, I mean, I don't think we're going to see another big budget Toxie movie. I think the Dinklage film is probably, where it ends. And that's fine. I think that's perfectly acceptable. At the same time, it got me thinking about other Troma properties that could be redone. I think Class of Nukem High would be a possibility. I mean, but part of the problem is I think that a lot of the ideas that Lloyd was bringing up in the 80s or 90s, and a lot of that's been incorporated into film now. There's a lot of things that are much more violent or sexual or social commentary pieces that, much like Roger Corman, I think Lloyd great work in kind of pushing people forward to do interesting things, regardless of what you think of his own output. I mean, I know that it's a specialized taste. It's not for everyone.
And this whole idea of them picking up titles and making those available for other people. I mean, I'm trying to remember who I was just talking to recently, and it was just like, yeah, we had an opportunity to get on Troma. We didn't do it, and we really kicked ourselves because they were the only company that wanted us, and we really should have gone with it. It's like, yeah, sometimes they're the only ones that are buying these films, and thank goodness that they do, because I'm a huge Surf Nazis Must Die fan. I believe that was a pickup by them. Obviously, Cannibal the Musical, another great pickup by them. So not just making movies, but distributing movies as well.
That really is the key, is to have an outlet where these odd little movies, can have a place to live. I mean, I remember many years ago, I don't know, it was maybe a decade or so, that Yale, Lloyd's alma mater, actually, bought a collection of like straight to VHS movies from the 80s. And the archivist there was interviewed and said, no, you have to understand, genre film often will tell you a lot about the culture which it was created in the time period in which it was created. And I would say if you look at the original Toxic Avenger, I would say if you look at Mr. Melvin, obviously we talked about the yuppie piece in there and corporate takeover, which has only become even more so. When you look at the new Toxic Avenger, and its discussion about corporate again, and also healthcare, and all of it, it really, genre can often point the way in ways that traditional dramas would just be too pedantic and not fun to watch.
And how about you, sir? What are you up to these days?
Just writing, hoping to get another draft in on this zombie novel that I wrote. And maybe if that all comes together in the next year or so, I could have some folks take a look at it and see what they think. And maybe that'll come out. But I've just been writing and, enjoying my life here in the high desert. It's always good to come on here and chat with you. And I'm very excited because, in 2026, if you're listening to this in real time, I think I'm on at least like once a month over 2026. So it's not a full return. I don't think I'll ever be able to return to what it was that we were doing before, but I am proud of that. And I'm on Letterboxd now. You can put that link up there and share that with folks. And I'm always writing little reviews for things I'm watching in real time. And I've had actually a few people reach out to me through Letterboxd and say, I really like episodes. I really like the era you were on the show, and you always brought up good points, and I was like, oh, it's nice. It's been, I haven't been doing it full time with you since, it's hard to believe, it's been 10 years. So it was in 2015 that I had to walk away from it, and I only pop up occasionally. But I mean, you're just doing a massive job, man. When I'm not on, I like to listen and hear who you got on as guests, and it's just been great to watch. It's been great to listen. I'm always gonna, I always rep Troma because it's so important to me for picking up my movie and releasing it out into the world for others to enjoy. I'm always gonna rep Projection Booth, man.
Thanks again, Rob, for being on the show, and thanks to everybody for listening. Do you want to support physical media and get great movies in the mail? Head over to Scarecrow.com and try Scarecrow Video's incredible rent-by-mail service, the largest publicly accessible collection in the world. You'll find films there entirely unavailable elsewhere. Get what you want when you want it without the scrolling. And of course, they have The Toxic Avenger. If you want to hear more of me shooting off my mouth, check out some of the other shows that I work on. They are all available at weirdingwaymedia.com. Thanks especially to our Patreon community. If you want to join the community, visit patreon.com/projectionbooth. Every donation we get helps the Projection Booth take over the world.
I'm gonna make that body mine. You turn me on, you make me wild. You drive me